we can save those kind of conversations for the actual political game we end up streaming later on.
No, that's for Rising Revengeance. Where the true opinions come, where we both come together in harmony and agree with Senator Armstrong.
All right.
Where we look at Ryan and we're just like, he's spitting truth, boy. Why are you fighting him?
Right, no! And it's gonna be like that one scene from fucking what's that movie, Interstellar, where the dude's like crying as his kids like abandon him on the screen.
Is it wrong that like I fucking vibed really hard with what Senator Armstrong was saying? Or is it just because he's really dramatic?
I vibe with Armstrong's fucking. I vibe with Armstrong. I know you're not supposed to because everyone's like that's actually a really bad strategy and terrible. But it's like I don't know, bro. He's spinning facts. I don't know about you guys. I'm hearing some straight facts over here.
He looks like a pro wrestler. He speaks like a champion. Look at him. He's awesome.
Okay, you're just siding with him because he's awesome. You're not even thinking about what he's saying. I don't even know if that's good or bad.
I did the same thing with Funny Valentine. I'm just like, you're awesome.
You're awesome. I'm gonna vote for you. Can Ryu copy styles in lore and canon? No fucking clue. What was that, Kyle?
Are we streaming now?
Yeah, they caught the Armstrong bit at the end there.
Oh, thanks for the warning.
I told you I was starting up the stream. No, it's good that you didn't say anything. It's good that you didn't say anything actually bad like you always do because you know you're a total fucking psychopath.
What?
Remember that, chat. Remember behind that Australian face. What were you guys talking about before? Just how good Metal Gear is, you know. That's what we were talking about, right, Kyle?
I just like how you're trying to gaslit a sick man into thinking that you told him he started the stream.
I told you we're starting the stream. That's why I told you. That's why I said. That's why I asked if you got it all out of your system. He's just trying to blame me. Oh, okay, that's nice. Yep, that's what the conversation was about. Nothing else. Oh joy! Don't worry, they didn't hear anything prior to Armstrong. In case you're worried about that. Okay, so since we have a lot more time today, I'm not going to go through the background of the characters, but we will go through Ryu's section as well on this stream. Last time we didn't because I just didn't have that much time, but I should have all day today. It's 4th of July. Happy 4th of July, everybody. And yeah, so Street Fighter's getting the games, guidebooks, and the Uden comics that are backed as canon by the guide. So they're going to give them comic scaling, which might ruin Kenshiro.
Do we get Strangers in Paradise?
Let me see what they say. Comparatively, Kenshiro is getting Fist of the North Star, Blue Sky manga, anime adaptations. Wild, we're getting the anime. Wild. With other materials such as various spin-off games being used as supporting material. We'll discuss the various guidance and before the verdicts. I said this last time. There's only one Gaiden that should have issues, as far as I remember. There's only one.
If you're also giving him the games, then there's no debate. Kenshiro touches Ryu and it's over.
Well, watch. Let's see what they give him.
I saw what these clowns did with the fucking. I listened to your and Mangler's fucking 3-hour thing yesterday with how those clowns fucked up Master Chief versus Doomslayer.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, that's for sure. We're not going to go through the history and legacy of the characters. Go on.
Man, the double standards are real. It's like, you know, if you really want someone to win, you'll really bend the rules for them.
Allegedly. This is not G1 blog though, so I shouldn't be expecting too many contradictions in general. We're gonna skip the legacy for the most part. It's not relevant to what we're discussing, although we mentioned this. Like, both of these characters have had impacts in their respective franchises and beyond. I think Ryu ended up becoming sort of the staple fighting game character across like generic media. Which, to be fair, that's partially because he dresses like what you would just expect a random martial artist to dress like. I think he just wears like a karate key and that's it. Okay.
He, he looks like every person you walk into the local YMCA.
What the fuck? All right, fair enough. All right, so we're gonna start off with experience and skill. Ryu. Ever since he was adopted by Master Goken, Ryu's life at a young age was surrounded in the very heart of battle. Having been trained in the ways of combat and Goken's passive variant of yes, along with Ken for over 10
You
years.
want me,
What?
do you want me to try and pronounce it?
You want to go for it?
Or is it? Oh, the Atsutsuken.
Okay, Asatsuken. Along with Ken for over 10 years, the teachings that he imparted to Ryu allowed him to always learn and react to his opponent's movement accordingly while pointing out their flaws and strengths. Let's see the scan here. Just relax and focus. That allows you to read your opponent's moves and react. A good fighter learns constantly. During the fight, you taught me how to defeat you. Okay.
Hey, I'm actually gonna have a little bit of an issue with that. That's just called learning how to fight. That's not really an ability.
I don't know.
If that's what we're giving people, then shit, like any child knows how to do that.
Now Kyle learning. Okay, here we go. Drunken boxing might be a tricky fighting style, but I can tell you're honest at heart. Focus on forging a sturdy body that'll lead to moving hands, landing harder. While tactics are important, brushing up on your basics even more so. Your hits were far too what? That's just him giving them that's literally just
That's
him
him
telling
being
them
a
what they
nice
need to
dude.
work on.
That's just him being a nice dude and giving them like a thumbs up after the fight.
Uh I don't think that's necessarily valid. That because
It's
again,
not.
he's just
It's
fighting
not.
them and then telling them what they can work on afterwards. I mean, it's good, I guess. It's just not.
Let's be very clear here. That is reaching of the highest caliber. If any other character, if we were to try and claim that for any character, if we were debating someone, they would shoot that down in a heartbeat. That is pathetic.
This would be like if you're sparring with your boxing partner, and then after you're done, you're just like, "Hey, man, you could work on your jab a little bit." That's basically what they're saying. Look, it's kind of baseline stuff right there. I'm not really quite sure what they're going for here, although I can kind of understand why they're saying it if this is the best they have for this. Always looking for an answer in the battle
If,
itself, even in defeat or victory. That's just fighting.
if
But
this is the best they have, then you don't mention it.
shut up, Kyle.
No, like this is fucking pathetic. Like if this is the leeway we're gonna get, then I hope to shit you do the same for Kenshiro for everything he says about the opponents.
Okay, hang on.
God forbid you better have that statement from Toki where Toki gives Kenshiro props but tells him that he couldn't beat him.
Gains. Okay, always looking for an answer in the battle itself and defeat victory. In this way, Ryu's journey has always been about improvement. Gained so good at martial arts that he started unconsciously learning techniques on his own, even without Goken's guidance. In the misty rain of the valley, as one traverses the dense.
Why don't we just do what we did with the Death Battle? Let's see if it actually says that. You go Deep Bell.
You want to go deeper on this one? All right. Copy image. We gotta go to Google Translate first, actually, because that's where that's where we rip the raws off.
Oh, and apparently we're fucking wrong for doing that because apparently machines are not smart.
Hang on. Translated to where's the Japanese? That's Japanese. Okay. Copy the text, and let's go deep L. And let's see here. Paste. Was true strength a challenger to the eternal theme vacuum Hadouken school? In the drizzling rain that smokes in the mountains, you can see an old temple. It looks like an abandoned house when you walk in through a deeply overgrown bamboo grove. At first glance, it looks like an abandoned temple, but there are traces of restoration work here and there, suggesting it was never neglected. The two statues of Aon are enshrined in the main temple. A man stayed in the center, receiving the gaze of an angry people. That man was Ryu. A new doubt was now welling up in his mind. He had challenged and won a fight against Sagat, the king of Muay Thai, who had been proclaimed as the strongest fighter in the world. I was now the greatest fighter and fulfilled my great purpose in life, so to speak. But did I really fulfill my purpose? Can I say I have achieved my goal? Yes. No. Something inside him cried out, no, you have not succeeded yet. Unknowingly, Ryu was ready. Hadouken, Garrus his thoughts and transforms him into a key blow with the Shoten no ho and release it from the palm of his hand. As usual, Ryu tried to release from his palm with his blood flowing inside of his body, but this day was different. The spiral tree was still not stopping. What's this? I felt a ferocious power surging through my body. Soon it exploded through the meridians. It exploded all at once. Meridians? A few minutes later, Ryu was staring at his palm. The statue in front of him was shattered into pieces. It had turned into a pile of wood. The vacuum wave motion fist, a technique that his master Goken was not supposed to teach him, was a technique that his master Goken was supposed to teach him someday if he were still alive. He himself had not yet fully grasped what had happened. One thing was clear: the path that his predecessors had taken in the past was far away, and he knew he had only taken the first step in a long road.
Oh, well, look at that. There's something that they claim is not actually there. Well, fucking great.
I guess what the argument here is that since like his own body basically called out for him to do it, I
We
guess
know what
that
it is.
urge is what they're arguing.
Okay, so we know what this scene is because this scene gets played all the time with Sagat. He basically feels the murderous rage of the Satsui no Hado, and then he just does a Shoryuken and rips his chest apart. That's it.
Welcome at the right time. Hello, Red Dusk. Hello,
Yeah, so
Wonton Soup.
he's pissed off and does an uppercut. Oh, yeah, that's very unconscious.
They'll probably try and get him Darkstalker scaling. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that one. To be fair, I can see their position as it being unconscious, but it doesn't say that unless like maybe the DPL translation is wrong. But let's see here. What's this one? Mastering each strike and key attack of the Ansatsuken, as if he were the one that created them. Since adopting you those many years ago within the walls of my dojo, I have watched you grow from a boy to a man, from an awkward novice to my greatest pupil. I have witnessed. Damn, sucks to be fucking Ken. I have witnessed you master every form of technique I have taught you, as if you were the one who created them. Okay, so he's good. So he's good at master. So he's good at learning. Good. And captain many Street fighters such as Bison, Sagat, or Oro. And Oro is a 140-year-old immortal and Senjutsu master who considered Ryu to be the only worthy martial artist in the world to teach. Can I, Nobody has enough guts to learn from a true master like me. The only one who has a true passion for fighting is the kid with the headband. Maybe he. Wait for me, kid. Wait. But this has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with being like skilled or powerful. It's just because he has the right attitude.
It's
Does it
because
say
he wants to.
I
It's
will
because he
teach
has
you?
the passion for fighting. This means nothing. If you showed the same moxie, he would acknowledge you too. It doesn't mean you're better than him or scale to him in terms of skill.
Yeah, no one has enough guts to learn from a true master like me. The only one who has a true passion for fighting is the kid with the headband. Yeah, this has nothing to do with skill. This is straight up just, hey, he's got the right attitude. Let's go train him. Okay. Gotta be. It's not
Damn,
the
I can really,
worst.
I can really feel where this blog is going just by how much they're giving Ryu.
Oh, I'm fairly confident they'll say Ryu wins by the end, and then we'll disagree. How did Oro get on a plane? Because he did. Oh, this is not G1. This is not G1, by the way. For context, did I put G1? No, I did not. This is not a G1 blog. This is a separate blog from those guys that quit versus blogs.
They should quit power scaling.
Once he actually set out on his journey to fight the world's strongest,
Sorry,
Ryu
I'm a
gained
bit
a whole.
catty today.
What?
Sorry, I'm a bit catty today.
No, it's fine, it's fine. Ryu gained a whole belt of experience under his fist, fighting famous figures such as Fei Long or Dudley. Okay, so I might be wrong here, but Dudley's the boxer, right?
He is.
Um, you know what? A good shout out, I guess. I'm not too sure what Dudley brings to the table. Fei Long, I believe, was a Chinese master who taught Chun Li, I believe. I could be wrong about that one.
It'd be more impressive if you mentioned the
The actual top tiers.
Well, no, I was gonna say like if you want to like talk about skill instead of like Dudley and boxing, you mention the Turkish oiled up Greco wrestler.
Yeah, fair enough. His experience in various countries in particular has allowed him to easily overwhelm more novice martial artists such as the Yun and Yang brothers or Alex. Why is this impressive? Uh, okay, I'm gonna keep it a straight buck. You have to give me a reason why overwhelming them is impressive. Fei Long is that? Oh, that's the Bruce Lee guy. Okay, I couldn't count even one of his blows. His reputation does not do him justice. He is much stronger. I'm sorry that I can't go camping. Please give me my apologies to Pet. Okay, so he's just beating novice martial artists, counting their techniques, and winning numerous local village tournaments before in Asia. Ryu Riz.
I
Oh,
don't know if him defeating a bunch of nobodies in an amateur tournament really matters. That's the equivalent of bragging that
well,
this master artist is beating up these thugs who tried to mug him on the street.
well. To be clear, this is experience and skill, so it does fall under experience. Speaking of tournaments, though, during his first out,
Of what? Of what? Fucking up people who can't fight on your level? Oh yeah, very good.
during his first outing in the first World Warrior tournament, he defeated fighters all around the world. Once he finally got to Thailand, he beat 20 well-known figures in the sport of Muay Thai, all just to attract the attention of the by then strongest known man in the world, Sagat, one of the most
Look at
skilled
that.
martial artists in the world.
Look at that. The only time they mention something when it comes to skill that's actually worthy.
Mhm. Let's see here. Once called King
I'm
of the
sorry.
Street Fighters,
What?
Sagat. Hmm?
I'm sorry. He's fucking 7'4".
Yeah.
Jesus.
Sagat reigned supreme until his narrow defeat at the hands of Ryu. Humiliated at his loss, he now plans to regain the title at any cost. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't Sagat in canon only lose to Ryu because the Satsui no Hado took over at the last minute?
Yes, he was going. He was going to beat Ryu, but then the
Sagat
Satsui no Hana in the surge of murderous intent led him to leading into a cowardly attack that he didn't see coming.
Sagat's Muay Thai fighting style is thought to be the most powerful in the world. With the exception of M. Bison, no other fighter comes close to his overall fighting ability. At heart, an honorable man, Sagat is tortured by his loss to Ryu and will side with anyone who will give him the chance or experience needed to regain the title.
Yeah, because you know in all the subsequent games how he has that scar on his chest.
Yeah.
That's from Ryu's sneak attack because
Yeah.
the way it works basically in martial arts fights, you wait for your opponent to get up and then you continue the fight. Ryu, because Sagat was coming over to see if he was pretty much okay, he then just fucking with the Satsui no Hana like ripped through his chest with an uppercut.
One of the most skilled martial artists in the world who won numerous championships and remained undefeated since he was 15, and whether Ryu defeated him fair and square with the Satsui no Hado or not, the two have exchanged fists more than once. After that scarring victory,
I think they're gonna play the Street Fighter 4 cutscene.
so we have one from 5. I guess this is an intro, or no, this is just a animation. Oh, all right. Sorry, I have too many things open. Undefeated until he let Dan beat him. Did he let Dan beat him? Street Fighter Alpha 2. So presumably there'll be some dialogue here. Ryu, now it's time for revenge. You still haven't recovered from our last duel. I have something new for you. This time you'll be scarred. All right. So keeping up with Saga is no small task for our good old hobo. Well, I hope he could keep up with Saga. All he does is fucking train all day, basically. When it
He's
comes
a
to life and death,
karate hero who goes around and fights people for fun. Like, he better be able to keep up with people.
when it comes to life or death situations, Ryu has been through the thick and thin, fighting some of the world's most dangerous fighters and any world-conquering threat. He faced and defeated M. Bison several times, even teaming up with his friend Ken on one occasion to make an organized attack against him. So they had to 2v1 him. Oh, okay, this is just that's just the anime. Okay, we're not gonna watch that. That's a little different. Overpowered characters such as Seth and Sadler, who use the data and abilities from other fighters around the world.
Seth is fair game, but to be fair, everyone on the roster of Street Fighter 4 can fight and beat Seth at the end of all their arcade endings, because, that's where they all end up, because Street Fighter 4 doesn't have a story mode, it's all just arcade. And everyone fights fucking Seth, even Dan.
Seth is the CEO of a weapons manufacturing trading company known as Sin. He has collected data from the world's top fighters and assimilated it into his own fighting style. Though he was developed to be a replacement body for Bison, he has plans of his own, plans to rebel and make Shadaloo his own. Bastard. And abilities from other fighters around the world. Is this what Seth looked like originally or something? Oh, that's just him collecting data. And while he
I was gonna
hasn't
say,
solidly won an encounter against him,
who the fuck is that?
wait, what? Oh, this is him fighting Akuma.
Actually, at this point, why don't you just go the full hog and give him his Asura's Wrath DLC?
While he hasn't solidly won an encounter against him yet. What do you mean? He literally wins in the first encounter. Or is this not Ryu actually fighting him? Because that looks like him being Akuma straight up. Hello, Ezio. Sagat probably felt bad for killing Dan's father, so he gave Dan a pity win. I thought Sagat let Dan win because Dan sucked so much it made Sagat feel bad. I like how everyone gives shit to I love how everyone gives shit to Dan, even though canonically he can perform the Hadouken. It's not a very good Hadouken, but like
He can also perform the Satsui no Hado. Not willingly, but he can do it.
I remember that one. Since he was a child, Kenshiro has been harshly trained in the ways of Hokuto Shinken by Ryukin, the ancient art of assassination, and achieved mastery in it. This is no small feat, as Hokuto Shinken is the most dangerous and powerful martial art in the world, stated before to be more terrifying than an army of 1,000 men. Valid. It is said that an unworthy successor could bring ruin to the entire world. Thanks to this, only a single successor can exist. Kenshiro and his two brothers are said to have brought Hokuto Shinken to its absolute pinnacle in 1,800 years of history. True. Putting Kenshiro above his uncle Kasumi, who was already absurdly skilled in his own right, being able to perfectly counter a martial art that had no weaknesses and just counter techniques based on instinct. So, regarding this martial art that has no weaknesses, there is a blind spot in his technique. That's how he counters it. So there is a weakness to his attack. He says no one can perceive that split second, but there is a weakness there. So that's technically wrong. Also, he does mention instinctive reaction and being able to learn like the full technique. This is fine. As Hokuto Shinken's basis lies in striking the pressure points of the human body, practitioners require extreme knowledge on anatomy, which Kenshiro mastered as well. Striking pressure points correctly requires superhuman precision, and Ken can hit a minuscule pressure point with a strand of hair in the middle of a fight to the death. Valid, but they should include the fact that not only was he poisoned at that point, he was also being beaten at the same time. Hokuto Shinken masters like Kenshiro are capable of perfectly adapting to enemies' techniques and attacks after brief studies or expositions to their fighting style. Yeah, so they don't have to scan for this, but I'm gonna go ahead and just flat out say that brief is an understatement. We have statements for Kenshiro literally seeing you do one attack, and he knows your whole fighting style. He can learn your fighting style at a glance, as well as copying their abilities and understanding them on a deeper level than the original practitioners. Yes and no. This one's a little bit. This is based on Kasumi's statement. It's fine, but there's a little more context there. But it is valid. It does adapt. It has infinite adaptational abilities. Hokuto Shinken being the ultimate martial art has. Oh, there we go. Infinite fighting variations, and Kenshiro being a direct descendant of Shuken, the founder of Hokuto Shinken, holds his.
Alright.
What?
Why doesn't Kenshiro impulse? Where's the where's the you know the commander, Amoeba, and all that?
Where are the other people who also have similar abilities to scale above? Nowhere, because Kenshiro's Rogues Gallery actually is insanely skilled, but it's okay. We'll have a couple of nobodies, I'm sure, being mentioned. When he was a child, Kenshiro could defeat fully grown men trained to kill in the art of Nanto Seiken. While this is valid, quick question: can Kenshiro copy an uncopyable technique? What's is the technique just called uncopyable? Like,
We
if
have
you're
enough.
asking, I mean, I'm gonna keep it a straight buck. Like, I'd have to see the context there.
We
Even
have enough.
enemy, what?
We have enough evidence at this point that if it can be physically fucking tongue dry, if it can be physically done, Kenshiro should be able to replicate it.
Go drink some fucking water. What the hell's wrong with you? Are you in your bed? Is this like one of those cases where you don't want to get up?
It's cold. Recover.
So,
Listen. From where I'm going to keep a straight buck with you. Yesterday, I indulged in the spirits after a while, and the spirits are not sitting well with me. The spirits don't like me anymore.
fair enough. So, regarding techniques, at the current moment, the only like restriction I will give to Kenshiro's copying ability, or I guess the only couple, straight up mystical bullshit that can't be replicated, or biological abilities specifically. So, for example, like, I don't think Kenshiro would be able to copy like the Sharingan's ocular abilities because you need the Sharingan for that, allegedly.
That's fine, but I was gonna disagree with you on some point. But the Sharingan is a good example. What he could do, however, is something like the Kamehameha, which is just an energy wave.
Yes, that is fine. If the technique can be taught without needing any biology, there's no reason to consider it special. The reason I specify biology is because in Regenesis, there is a group of people who are the closest to God, and they have powers that Kasumi doesn't demonstrate, even though he's seen their technique multiple times. So unless Kasumi ends up copying their techniques at the end, I'm currently keeping biology off the table. Even enemies that Kenshiro fights early in the manga are incredibly tough and skilled, such as members of God Hand. They're stated to kill entire armies of 500 gorillas each. Their leader, the Colonel, had mastered combat to such a degree that he could read the opponent's attacks by observing subtle eye and muscle movements, effectively achieving precognition. There are also statements he learned every way to kill a man, so keep that in mind as well. Armies are nothing. Kenshiro slaughtered his entire forces and killed them.
I like how they don't mention what the Colonel's fist actually does, because it's like
Welcome to.
insanely impressive and better than like 90% of Street Fighter's cast.
Yeah, the Colonel's actual like precognition is fucking absurd. Cause
I'm not even talking about cognition. I'm talking about his vacuum fist.
oh oh the Colonel technically no he does have vacuum fist, yeah. Oh, also the Colonel can control things in the air with just techniques too. He can like fucking control where
He,
boomerangs go and stuff.
he, he can hit you from across the room by manipulating the air. He's a fucking Chad.
Kyle, is it true you think Masquerade is cool, or should I say Alice? Kyle, our country got their independence in
Oh,
1882, right?
that's great. That's great fucking rules. And I can say this because at the end of the series, she is legally 18. Alice is hot. I checked. I'm safe.
Okay, I'm gonna trust you. Okay, Kyle, when did your country gain independence? Apparently, someone's asking.
We we don't. We're part of the Commonwealth. We don't have independence. We're just left alone by Britain. We can just do our own thing. Like
Oh
being
wait,
part of the
Kyle, you're
Commonwealth
45, weirdo.
doesn't mean we have to run everything by England.
Hello, Governor. Technique not be copied. Listen, I understand you're saying that the technique can't be copied, but like, okay, so I'll say I have no evidence to say Kenshiro can copy a non-copyable technique, if that's what you're looking for. But to be honest with you, I would have to see what that technique even is, because if it just says this is a technique that can't be copied, I need the context of what they're fucking able to copy in that verse. Because for a good example,
I also need the context of like what the technique is, because there is a chance that it could just be a very complex technique that's just hard to replicate.
yeah, like a good example of this would be like Taskmaster has trouble copying Deadpool and other characters because their minds are a little messed up, not because their actual abilities are that hard to copy. Like, I
Or
need the context
or
to give
another
you a
good
proper answer.
or another good example using a fighting series.
Valid.
It's like when Kairetsu and Baki were talking whether or not Yujiro knew Shiori or if he already learnt it, which is something that takes like 80 years to learn how to do properly.
Hello, Minato.
Or would you disagree with that example?
No, it's fine. The point is if a technique is said to be uncopyable, I need the context behind the verse and the technique to give you an accurate answer. Because if you just tell me the technique's uncopyable, well, unless there's some hacks ability that prevents it from being copied, I need the context. Otherwise, I can say Kenshiro should be able to copy it. Because
For example, if your special technique is you somehow light your fists on fire and then you start fighting with fire on your fist, that's fine. I would not say that Kenshiro could do that.
oh no, you don't read Regenesis.
I have not read Blue Sky, no.
So the practitioner of the original flying style that got mixed with Hokuto Shinken is able to produce flames from his hand and burn people's essence away.
I stand corrected.
For pyro manipulation, not a problem. Okay. Ken's journey wasn't a cakewalk though, as he met several formidable foes that shaped his power and skill by the end of the series. As stated by himself, Kenshiro grew stronger by fighting
Like
strong
you said,
opponents. Go on.
he met several strong opponents like Zed.
I said. And continuously grows during a fight to match his opponent's strength as well.
Okay, so this is where it's going to get kind of weird for Fist of the North Star because
It's gonna get
me
complicated.
and Zed agree on this. Other Fist of the North Star power scalers don't. Fist of the North Star is less of a you beat someone, now you're stronger. It's more everybody sits in the same pool. It's more skill.
It's a much more skill-based series. Especially because most fights don't end up being a battle of strength anyways, they just become a battle of technique. Just because it's stated that way doesn't mean it can't be copied. Is a similar case where you have an armor that's stated to be invulnerable, but the context means it's very durable. Again, everything's a case by case basis. That's why like you need context to properly power scale series. You can't take people's word on shit because if you do, they might be leaving out context that they don't intend to. Like I'm not saying everyone who tells you something about a series is lying to you. I'm saying that they might not realize they're not giving you the whole context you need to make an
Oh,
accurate judgment.
oh, please. Let's give a real example. Watch any of our G1 blogs.
Gosh darn it, Kyle. But no, so this is where it gets complicated because the guidebooks also don't support the idea of massive strength increases. There are some characters who are absolutely stronger than others, no dispute. Like Rao is absolutely stronger than a good portion of the characters in the series, just AP wise. It doesn't mean they can't fight and kill him or they can't win the fight against him. It's just highly unlikely, but he is stronger than them. In the case of Han, technically, while Kenshiro is getting stronger in that fight, I believe either right after that or right before that, they state Kenshiro stronger than Han.
Well, let's also give, like, Rao a little bit of context. If Toki was healthy, he'd be the strongest of the brothers.
Yeah. Rao literally gets upset because Toki fucking died because he was too fucking sick. It's such a good fucking scene though. All right, so
God, that series is. If you want to know how to be a man, read Fist of the North Star. It shows you that men can cry and be fucking powerful. Is there a fight where Kenshiro fights someone and he doesn't fucking cry at the end because he's made a friend, but he has to kill the friend?
Off the top of my head, the only fights where he doesn't cry afterwards, I believe, there's more than one. There's more than one. There's more than one. Because it's Salder. He doesn't cry for Salder, but he does feel bad for him at the end. And he doesn't cry for Han either.
All Salva wanted was a hug.
Literally, half a century's end nightmares could have been prevented if Salder's master just decided to not have his son kill him. Wild. Honestly, if more people read Fist of the North Star, we would have a much more positive and masculinity, I guess, image for men. I guess would be the right way of saying it. I don't really care for that, but
We would also have better storytelling and better fights in fiction.
All right, let's go here. One of such strong opponents was Salder, a member of the Six Divine Fists of Nanto, who initially appeared immune to pressure points until Kenshiro found out that secret light in his body's inverted heart and found a new strategy to beat him. No. So I'm actually gonna.
What he found out is that. Did he find out, or did Salva just tell him that these pressure points are reversed?
So Kenshiro finds out in the most ass-pulley way because Salder should have also killed him right afterwards, but Kenshiro's... Okay, so technically Kenshiro doesn't have plot armor. I think I told you that, right? The author explained why Kenshiro doesn't die in a guidebook. His body will unconsciously, at all times, dodge a lethal blow. Every attack that gets thrown at Kenshiro is supposed to kill him. But even without realizing it, his body will just insta-dodge. That's why he survives all of his fights.
Actually, because I know these people haven't dived into as deep as you have when it comes to this verse. Explain why Salva is actually way more impressive than people give him credit for, because technically his technique is... Did we come to the conclusion that it was flight or intangibility?
It's just flight. It's just flight. It's not intangibility. Actually, I end up having beef with this later because they give Kenshiro intangibility interaction, but like they shouldn't because they give it based off the Souther fight, but Souther isn't intangible.
If you want to give him that, just give it the key under the unconscious transmigration.
Yeah, I mean that's valid, but they don't do that. They give it for the Souther fight. Look, so the fight against Salder was a 50-50 where he barely won right as he was about to die, according to the guidebooks. Souther is also an insanely skilled martial artist outside of the pressure points, being able to perfectly read Kenshiro's attacks and dodge them midair like they're nothing. Because again, this is after Kenshiro already figured out Souther's whole fighting style that shouldn't have been possible. And to top it off, he only effectively wins because he shuts off his legs. Because even Kenshiro acknowledges in the fight, while he doesn't say it verbatim, the panel where Souther claims he's going to kill Kenshiro in the final attack, you see Kenshiro actually like kind of nervous about it. Also, he didn't create a new technique on the fly. He basically he pulls out one of his ultimate techniques. So Hokuto Shinken is the most powerful technique in the series, but part of the reason it's so powerful is they do their hardest to hide their best shit. Because if any of the other fighting styles found out the shit they had, they would be wiped off the face of they would be taken out 100%. Muso Tensei is the only thing the other styles can't fight against for the most part, but you can't master Muso Tensei normally. You have to go through a specific process to master it that most successors never even get the chance to.
Well, they also like to hide their techniques because, believe it or not, it's not just like their fists that can copy stuff. All the other fists can copy other techniques as well. Like the entire verse is based on they can all copy each other. Like Amoeba literally figured out by looking how to use a lot of the techniques.
They're all incredibly skilled martial artists who could learn new techniques. While technically Kenshiro has better statements for learning and Hokuto Shinken has a specific technique that lets them copy more effectively, if any of the other fighting styles saw their shit, it would take maybe a few days tops for them to learn the technique. Because a character like Amoeba and Jaggy are able to learn these martial arts in a relatively quick period of time. Amoeba literally just sees Hokuto Shinken once and masters it.
I want people to understand is Jaggy is a bit of a laughing stock in terms of the series, but he is also part of when their master said, he could have been a master practitioner that could have had the techniques passed down to him. It was just unfortunate that there were 4 people in the same era who all could have been master practitioners.
To be as clear as possible, even Kenshiro himself acknowledges Jaggy as a master of Hokuto Shinken. So Jaggy's trash, but even the trash is a master of Hokuto Shinken, according to Kenshiro. Also, I think it's also confirmed in the guidebooks he also mastered Hokuto Shinken as well, because he's also a master of Nanto Seiken, which is also really absurd, because he would only have had maybe a year tops to learn that technique. Of course, we can't not
understand is you can make fun of Jaggy all you want, but there is a good chance that Jaggy walks into your favorite verse and rips them apart. Now, I'm going to say this right now. Hey, if you like Jujutsu Kaisen, Jaggy's going to fuck them up the hard way. Because depending on how you go by the scaling chain, he would scale above anyone in Blue Sky as well.
That is possible, but I'm not going to get into that one right now because that is a possibility I don't want to acknowledge. Who is Jaggy? No, Jaggy is.
We've had this discussion off stream, which is pretty much most of the people that Kenshiro fights would scale above Blue Sky.
There are enough statements to support the idea that the fighters in Century's End would scale above Blue Sky. Now, granted, I will offer a caveat to that, in that Regenesis might still change that, but Regenesis has 4 chapters left, so we'll have to see what Regenesis says. But at the current moment, there is a valid argument for that. It's just not one I want to accept. Not for Jackie. Rao was a great fighter, considered to help bring Hokuto Shinken to its peak in the 1800-year history, just like Kenshiro. Why are we not talking about Toki? He spent time gathering military strength and seeking knowledge.
Are we not going to talk about the fact that Rao made his own fighting style, the Strong Fist?
So technically, both Rao and Toki actually evolved Hokuto Shinken to a new fighting style. According to, I believe, some guidebooks, it does say they evolved the fist. But yeah, Rao makes his own fighting style based on Hokuto Shinken. Steals secrets of hundreds of martial arts. It is said that by his time as Keno, Rao had already mastered almost every martial art. Let's see what the scan says. Has mastered almost every martial art and will annihilate anyone who stands his path. Oh, is this the... Yeah, this is Toki Gaiden. Kenshiro, to defeat him, Kenshiro attained the most powerful technique in Hokuto Shinken called Muso Tensei, becoming the first in history to do so. Okay, so he's not the first to obtain it, he would just be the first to master it, technically. Because not only does Kasumi have access to it unconsciously, but someone had to figure out the technique in order to pass it down, technically. So someone else had it at some point. Once Rao managed the same, their final battle came down to a contest of raw skill and willpower, which Kenshiro won. Some guidebooks claim that Rao
Not,
unconsciously held back in the end, so
I'm gonna disagree with that. Rao let him win.
does Zen solo JJK?
Zim knows my position on that, and I don't think he like fully disagrees with me when I say like Rao let him win, especially when you read what Rao says.
So the story makes it clear afterwards that Rao seemed to want to die, and I think even the movies kind of confirmed that. He still fights all out, according to several of the guides, but some of them do claim that he unconsciously held back his final attack because he didn't want to live in a world anymore. So the story doesn't talk about this all that much because it doesn't deep dive into the characters because of its time period. But every time Kenshiro killed a martial artist, Rao's world got smaller. Every time the martial artist died to Kenshiro, that was one less person that Rao could fight. That was one less person that could share the world with Rao. And for a martial artist like him, who wants to become stronger and better, that's the worst thing that could have happened to him. Kenshiro killing everybody is like the worst thing that could have happened to him.
Rao was somebody who was on top of the mountain and had nowhere else to climb, and he got sick of being at the top.
Rao was lucky he had so many rivals to begin with because there's a good chance that everyone could have just been born super fucking weak. He got so lucky he had so many people who he could actually throw hands with for a bit. Yamcha and Jaggy being the butt monkey characters in the anime, but are actually OP as fuck. Yamcha used to be cool and had a great attack where he sends people flying. He sends a flying wolf at you back in one of the PS2 Dragon Ball games, the Wolf Fang Fist. Yes, that's his main technique. Let's see here. And Rao's biological brother Kaio talks about Hio and Kaio. Both practice the art of Hokuto Ryuken, an evil martial art that enables one to tap into the demon realm and manifest an aura so evil it corrupts the user's very soul. At first, the spatial powers granted by this aura even beat Muso Tensei, but Kenshiro eventually managed to adapt and defeat them both, cementing his status as the strongest man in the history of Hokuto. I believe there's a guidebook scan for this. Yes, this is like the only guidebook scan they have. But Kenshiro eventually managed to adapt and defeat them. Actually,
you got that scan, don't you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, hold on a minute. Is that this guidebook? Hang on, I gotta find the double page spread. It's gotta be in this one. Because this is the Kenshiro and Blue Sky one.
Okay. Speaking of adding things to the list that we need to do, besides from re-going over Regular Ragnarok, we still need to do Polnareff versus Ray.
True. Yeah, hang on. Yeah, it's from the original Blue Sky guidebook. Wait, if they have access to this guidebook, then I'm gonna have some major beef with them later on. Because they make a claim later I know about that this guidebook directly refutes. Interesting. I was not expecting them to have that guidebook. By the end of the manga, Kenshiro underwent the ritual of lifting the seals of Hokuto by interacting with the Hokuto Soki stone. By doing that, Ken experienced in an instant the entire lifetime of Shuken and achieved true understanding of the martial art, reaching the full potential of his bloodline and receiving a great power boost. So, technically, the statue only gives him the memories of Shuken and the way to beat Hokuto Soki. It doesn't, I mean, technically there might be a power boost, but it wouldn't matter since the guidebooks consistently claim Rao's his strongest opponent or Rao's on the same level as Kaio. So, a bit weird there on that one.
Well, this is kind of like something that needs to be stated as well, that I don't think they'll acknowledge. It's the fact that Kaio feared Rao, and and part 3 goes out of its way to basically explain. Is it part 3 or part 2? Either one. There's multiple statements that if Raoul came across the sea, he could have absolutely have fought on par, if not beaten him.
So most of the characters in the Island of Ozra were convinced that Rao could beat the generals, and the guidebooks have their fight being a 50-50 depending on how long the fight goes on. Basically, if the fight ends quickly, Kaio has the advantage, but if the fight goes on for a while, then Rao wins the fight. But mere knowledge of martial arts and all Ken has to offer, he's practically a Renaissance man in his own right. I don't have this guidebook, but this is valid. Kenshiro is also extremely intelligent, has photographic memory, being able to memorize 50,000 words by reading them once. Master Ryu can also taught him traditional Chinese medicine, a field Kenshiro grew to have a deep knowledge of. Toki had more. So Ryu's equipment is the headbands, his gi, his gloves, his
Does the
master's...
headband do anything?
What? No.
So you're just mentioning shit he wears. That
Oro's
means
cloth, his shoes, his sandals, a bag that has money, food, and other stuff, weapons.
At this point, why don't you tell me if he has a foreskin or not?
Kenshiro has his nunchucks, his horse, and that's it? Okay, so hold on now a minute. I mentioned this last time, but I'm going to talk about this. So Ryu gets the clothes on his back, his random fucking boxing gloves, and all that shit. But Kenshiro doesn't even get his shirt that keeps coming back after he pops it? That seems pretty useful.
What about his pants?
His armor, because Kenshiro does wear light armor.
What about his shoes? His belt buckle?
How about his special glove he got from fucking Ein, his friend that died? Why isn't that one mentioned? But it's okay, guys. It's okay.
What?
It's okay. Ryu gets his gloves though.
What about his beard?
Valid. Okay, powers, ki manipulation. In Street Fighter, ki is an energy obtained by those who transcend nature in their pursuit of championship, all of them coming from the same source but still brought about through different circumstances. That's fine. Well, let's see. Let's read the direct scan.
So trying to make it sound more impressive than it is. Just call it what it is. It's a generic energy system that comes from the body.
Armor for fists. Ryu has weapons. I thought Ryu fights with honor. So it's just old up Kenshiro versus Ryu. It's butt naked Kenshiro versus Ryu. That is what is going on here. Also, giving this fucking horse to Kenshiro is not fair because the horse is actually comparable to Rao in strength. It's strong enough to hurt Rao.
Well, it's not fair because this is like a 14-foot horse.
The horse can also trample armies. It is a very big horse. They do not do it justice, I'm sure. All of them come from the source. In Ryu's case, his training with Goken and his own desire to become better as he kept training gave him an understanding over ki. Okay, now that you perfected the external physical forms, you're going to learn chi, find your center. It is within you, but not inside. It is not physical. There we go. Yeah, so it's just chi, all right? Sensing, Ryu has shown the capability to sense fighters through their ki.
It's the same method that fucking Dragon Ball uses. It's a generic energy system.
So that horse solos JJK. That solos most of it except for Gojo, because technically most characters in Fist of the North Star can't bypass Gojo.
Hey,
I have the first video working on it.
Maybe Sukuna if he activates his domain.
To be honest, that depends on how you want to take Sukuna's cutting ability right off the bat, because if he starts cutting people, they'll just probably blitz him. Other keys like Chun-Li.
We still need to do Salem versus Sukuna, actually.
Yeah. Hang on. This is just her saying there's
I'm
intense.
gonna be so fucking mad if I get to the end of it and fucking Salem wins.
Energy manipulation. Many practitioners have shown to manifest energy for several types of projectiles like Hadouken or increase his striking strength by covering his fist with energy. He has also shown enough control to, say, make his ki go through a waterfall or create an energy dragon with petals. All right, hang on. How does this work? Well, because like they're making it sound impressive, so I need to know what they're doing.
I don't know why they don't just say when to start looking at like the image.
To make his ki go through a waterfall. He just blasted it. Granted, it was still like it hadn't refilled yet. Oh, okay. I'm not going through all that.
Like, it travels upwards, but it's really not anything super impressive.
Elemental manipulation. Controlling ki isn't just using energy. Practitioners such as Ken or Akuma have the ability to control the elements. Ryu's own personal choice of elements, in particular, the ability to control fire, electricity, and wind, such as imbuing his projectiles with fire or electricity, as shown with the Shakunetsu and Denjin Hadouken, creating electricity around his fists with Denjin Renken, send a pressure of overwhelming wind out of his body. Can I?
I just read. I just realized what you said. And you got the last part of the word wrong. It's Dinky.
Is it Denki? Can create small tornadoes with his Shoryuken. Isn't this just air
Rinky.
pressure? Okay. Or make hurricanes that are larger than entire skyscrapers with the Tatsumuki. Isn't this just force? Is this really elemental manipulation? Or is this just like overwhelming force? Because like correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have enough speed and force, you can like do this on your own, right? That's how like fucking tornadoes are always made, technically. Different speeds and shit.
You technically can. If you move fast enough, you technically can manipulate the air in such a way to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like don't get me wrong, it's not bad. I just feel like that's a little. You sure about this one? Also known as the
Look,
assassination fist.
it's one of those things where it's like it's not wrong, but it also needs context.
Such as mixing traditional martial arts such as karate, kempo, and techniques utilizing the hado into a style deeply rooted in assassination, befitting its name, creating such iconic techniques as the Hadouken, Shoryuken, and Tatsumaki Senpaku or Senpukyaku. That's fine.
Senpukyaku.
If you have enough speed, you can cause city block-sized explosions. Yeah, but that's because of like friction in the air, right? Gotsu
Technically, if you move fast enough that you can do that, you pretty much burn the clothes off your body and pretty much your skin due to air friction.
Well, it's a good thing Kenshiro's butt naked for this fight then. Gotetsu based the art or whatever. Their dad passed it to Akuma and Goken, but due to Goken not being a fan of the violent ways of the Ansatsuken, he made his own more passive variant of the art center on self-defense and control, whereas Akuma was obsessed in learning the darker side of Atsutsuken and forbidden secrets such as the Satsui no Hado, pursuing a greater strength in the face of death, leading to a violent battle between Akuma and his master, as only one such kind of demon could exist, with Akuma resulting victorious after killing his dad with the raging demon, or his master. I'm going to assume it's his dad, but it might be just his master. Years later, Goken would teach his peaceful variant to Ryu and Ken at an early age, training them in the ways of combat for 10 years, while Ken focused on more of his own thing with a practical style, with Shoryuken-focused techniques. Ryu would initially stick to an all-rounder defensive style defined on Hado-based techniques and the essentials that Goken taught to him with straight punches, solar plexus strikes, axe kicks, or chops, and defensive techniques such as parrying thrown into the mix. Though he has picked up other martial arts in hopes of self-improvement, including such as Taekwondo or the grapple and throws of Judo, this jack of all trades allows Ryu to learn and adapt to many of his opponents through its flexible use in battle. Okay. After hearing the voice of nature and having his soul transported to a tree in Africa, Ryu learned to sense and feel the voices of the trees in the wind, allowing him to unlock the Fist of Wind. In simple terms, by merging his consciousness with nature, Ryu can use his feet as a way to absorb ki from them and then release it into an energy in his punch. What?
So he just has fucking. He can just do what Naruto does with Sage Jutsu.
Well, is he absorbing his opponent's ki? Or is he absorbing,
The
like,
environment.
other ki? Oh, hang on. Got some lag. Okay, when that happens. My fans are on at full blast, right? Yeah, they're on at full blast. What the heck? Uh, no, dang it. That's weird. Sorry about that. Nope, not that one either. There we go. I can't wait to get to AP hacks and speed so we can see Uni plus Ryu. Kenshiro just
Well,
be asserting dominance and this the whole entire time.
here's the thing. Like, Kenshiro's the type of fighter where it doesn't really matter what your AP is. It only matters what your speed is. Because if you don't have a really good healing factor, or you're not faster than him, you could be multiversal, and if you're still slower than him, you're losing.
Okay. In simple terms, into a powerful shapeless fist that can go beyond the striking range. The shapeless fist essentially will act as a sort of raging torrent of wind that will slash the opponent when they are struck. Alright, so he has the basics of Nanto Seiken. Solid. While the move is exclusive to this manga, Capcom has a weird sort of thing with constantly referencing it in the games. How is this a reference?
So, a punch, and
So, good punch. Can Muso Tensei be copied?
I'm going to disagree with that. That's raging.
That's fair. I think Ryu should be at least MFTL plus since he scales to Akuma who can jump to heaven in mere seconds. Okay, what does heaven mean though in this case? Like, do you mean like actually heaven, or do you mean just jumping into the sky? Where was this when they tried to argue for DMC's novels not being canon? Wild. The Satsui no
Well,
Hado.
just to remind people, this is not G1.
Yes. Goes so far as tempting them with the limited power at the cost of regard for their human morality. All who repeatedly tap into it without any prior experience are soon to be driven mad. It is primarily targeted those who trained in the art of Ansatsuken, coming hand in hand with its fierce nature. Ryu, in particular, has been dealing with it ever since he first scarred Sagat with Shoryuken. With the Dark Hado constantly gnawing at Ryu and echoing in his mind to fall into the path of bloodshed, relapsing into it whenever he started struggling against a much greater foe or when he saw a loved one in danger. With Satsui no Hado taking over, Ryu's physical capabilities were, of course, much greater, having his strength, durability, and speed boosted to the point of overpowering characters like Cody, Birdie, or Chun Li. Can he already overpower them, like, in
He
general?
should already he should already be able to beat them even without it, shouldn't he?
I guess not. Consistently tank and dodge
I,
bullets.
I don't know much about Cody, but I know Cody is supposed to be pretty strong. Chung Li, I'm pretty sure, is lower than Ken, even in base.
Uh, super easily, or bunny hop like nobody's business. He also is able to use the dark energy of Satsui no Hado to empower and imbue it with millennium of catastrophic air destruction, able to shoot multiple Hadoukens, or use the deadly technique, the Shingoku Satsu. Regeneration. Can regenerate injuries like bullet wounds by shooting them out of his body and stopping the bleeding. Ryu can also recover from his wounds much faster than Ken in the Street Fighter Alpha manga. Wait. That's not regen. Removing the object and closing the wound is not regen. Teleportation and limited phasing. Can teleport and phase through attacks. Let's see this.
It's the same shit that you know Akuma's technique. It's probably
Yeah,
that.
it is. Or projectiles with the Ashuri Senkin. And by covering himself with illusions, Akuma has also teleported around the world in one of his battles with Goken. Not back. This is not over, Goken. Okay, so they can both just teleport. All right, that's pretty good actually. Those under the Satsui no Hado seem to be able to talk with each other through a sort of telepathic link. That doesn't matter. Akuma has shown the capability of lifting big rocks in the air with telekinesis. All right. Also, Akuma also meets God, but Kenshiro's still here. All right, Hadouken. Do we have to go through these? We're just gonna skip these. They're just energy attacks.
These are just techniques that don't really offer anything. You can skip them.
Oh, hang on, hang on. Oh no, it's just Shinshiryu. All right, we're just gonna skip forward here a little bit. If there's anything here worth mentioning, I'm sure they'll mention it later on. Raging Demon. All right, this one's worth mentioning.
If there's anything here that really matters, I'm sure they'll put it in the verdict.
Many of the ones who weren't experienced perished by simply using it once and were taken advantage of by Dark Hado. When performed, the user rushes to grab the opponent with their killing intent at full display as they unleash a brutal chain of 16 to 37 hits depending on the game. With the only 16 hits? With the past sins and evil actions of the target weighing in and making the target's death far more painful as each strike is landed, killing them and even potentially destroying their life force of spirit. In the words of Akuma, in numerous blinks of an eye, you have witnessed hell. It is not by my fist, but the weight of your own sins that killed you. Wait, so what happens if you're like just a good person? Extended material like Udon takes Akuma's words far more literally, has the victim's soul just straight up be sent to the realm of Makai, you know, like the dark side's version of hell. So you're just straight up witnessing actual hell. Whatever. The only real ways to avoid a technique is by using the power of nothingness to negate the attack or by separating one life force / spirit from their body to prevent them from being destroyed. Bullshit. Bullshit. As latter is how Goken is able to survive the Raging Demon before Akuma killed him by rebuilding his body with his spirit as the years went by before the Raging Demon killed his soul. Other characters such as Gan or fellow Final Fights Guy has also similarly been able to avoid it by blocking each and every strike from the Raging Demon. Yeah, okay, good, good. I was gonna say, hold up a minute now. Yeah, you can just beat them in the Raging Demon, or be Gil and just get right back up with Resurrection, or if you're M Bison and Capcom aren't fully willing to kill you off. Good. How will that affect Kenshiro? Dude is just a good person. How many characters in Street Fighter can use the Raging Demon? Uh, four.
This isn't a win con for him because they've just shot themselves in the foot by saying that, because if Ryu is massively slower than Kenshiro, then Kenshiro will just block all the hits.
Yeah, even if he's not slower though, like it shouldn't do that much to him. Minot claims that it's hard to see the future of you fighters. Like it's because you're always fighting against it. Okay, so limited resistance to precog. Okay. Ryu's mind was stated to be strong enough to resist being brainwashed. Whether he gave in or not in this ending is unclear. Wait, what? Okay, fair. Oh, this one. He is resisting, sir. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, he is resisting. That's fair. Fear manipulation. Akuma's mere presence caused the trees to kill themselves out of fear of being destroyed, and Ryu's fight with Akuma. Okay, but that's Akuma though. Oh, well, he resists it. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Electricity can resist lightning-based attacks. Made Ryu unaffected by. It's just Ryu beating women, as expected. Fire can survive being lit on fire by attacks such as Dowson's Yoga Fire. That's probably a gameplay thing. Broke out of being encased in ice by Gil's Pyrokinesis. Corruption and possession. Subdue the Satsui no Hado once and for all, with Kage being unable to convince him to embrace it again. Ryu has also shown to resist M. Bison's ability to possess people more than once, and one time Ryu using Bison's own psycho power energies against him. Soul manipulation. Couldn't devour Ryu's soul like he did the others. Is this from the... What is this? Do you know Ryu was Kyle? Okay, so to clarify, does he actually eat souls or does he have to beat you in a fight? Uh Jeremy, can you confirm if that character just randomly soul hacks or does he have to beat them then eat their soul? And we have Kenshiro Token manipulation, token aura. Yep. Basically just fighting energy, fighting spirit energy, energy projection. Yep. Phasing. Key energy has demonstrated the ability to phase through people and objects, either by completely going through someone that attacks someone behind them. True. Or selectively targeting internal pressure points without causing any external wound. Valid. Non-physical interaction. Souther was not completely intangible. That's wrong. But he would have non-physical interaction, being able to interact with Rao's Muso Tensei and like, and also technically the fucking Onryu Tenha has non-physical interaction, and there's no reason Kenshiro can't use the Onryu Tenha. He just would probably choose not to. Key and energy nullification. Kenshiro is able to completely nullify a key attack aimed at him. Key mastery can be used to drain others of their own energy. So they better have resistance to energy draining. Okay, well, yeah, this is the example of Kasumi resisting energy drain. It's not perfect, but it's a lot. It's very personal. I'm pretty sure he doesn't need to fight you in order to eat your souls. It's just that he wants to fight you to see if you're worthy of devouring. I see. Tokiora, yep. Battlefield force field creation, not exactly. I mentioned this last time. That barrier is not invulnerable. I believe the game calls it invulnerable, and I guess that's their logic. But I'm going to tell you right now, being as fair as possible, that's not vulnerable. This one is valid, though, for a force field, but that's just more him bouncing someone off of him. Go ahead.
Where's limited space creation? Because you have all the techniques from Blue Sky.
Do they not give him the Son Ryu Tenha? I'm kind of surprised on that one. They give Ryu everything. Where's my Son Ryu Tenha? Shockwave and air manipulation. Yep. Fear and empathetic manipulation. Yep. Telekinesis. Yep. Phasing. Yep. Weather manipulation. That one's a little more debatable.
Please, you don't need to look like Kenshiro and have a strong aura to scare people.
So the reason I say it's debatable, okay, so they're using the movie, so that's fine. But a lot of the times when the weather shit's going on, the characters will reference the heavens as doing it. Like when Falco and Kenshiro fight each other, there's a dark cloud over the sky that they split during their fight, and Falco says the heavens are split because I fucked up. So it's not. It's fine for scaling for the most part. It's just technically I wouldn't necessarily give them credit for creating those weather phenomenon. Interacting with it, sure. Creating it directly, I don't know. It's a little up in the air. Instinctive action. I believe it's from the novel. Nope. Okay, yeah, I had a problem with this one too. This is not automatic. Rao directly activates it. You see on panel, he does something to launch those attacks out. Ray's master also has something similar.
You see the panel where he's doing it, his eyes open up wide.
Yeah, levitation is fine. Healing. He's closing wounds. I wouldn't necessarily call him healing. Again, closing wounds once more. Toshin no Aura, a special kind of aura manifested in the form of Indra. Okay, the god of war, that's fine. Enhanced fear manipulation. What?
I forgot how good the art is.
This doesn't technically fry in Kaio, it fries his energy, which is still really good. Ki and energy, deflected Kaio's ki blast. Again, a little bit wrong, but you don't see any scars though. Yeah, that's because they close it up completely. So,
deflected Val's boss. Fucking, I wish I could do that when I was playing Strangers in Paradise, the Roaring King's Cannon.
It wasn't Kaio. It's not that he deflects Kaio's attack. Kaio's energy is scared of that aura, so it avoids it on its own. So that's healing? No, because the wounds technically aren't healed though. If you accept closing wounds as healing, that's fine, but they're not healing because even here the scars are still there. Like you can still see the scars. He's just closing the wound himself. Same here. The wounds are just closing.
If we say it's healing, then it's like the very lowest tier of regeneration.
There is a difference because we know in Regenesis we've seen characters heal their body. We know there's a difference. All right. Just pressure points. Effective Duraneg. I'm not going to go into all of these. There's no reason to, but just whatever you think. Yeah, he can probably do it with pressure points. No, Souther destroys your body in 3 seconds. That one didn't work. It extends one's lifespan for a day after causing great pain. Whoa, are we not going to give the power boost it gives? If he's no longer bleeding, it's still low level regeneration. Look, if that's how you guys want to take it, that's fine. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's entirely wrong. I'm just going to tell you that if you tell me a character has a healing factor and all they do is close their wounds, technically no. So say if he gets shot by a bullet and it goes through his arm, he can close the bullet holes, but the damage to the tissue, bones, and muscles is still there. It's just compressed. Like the damage is still done, but the hole is closed, so it doesn't affect him anywhere near as much. It'll probably heal back eventually. These characters do have like better healing than your average person. It's just that I would not call that a healing factor unless like the muscles just stay there now.
Well, it all depends because we're getting into territory of like
It's not relevant. I just wouldn't call it a healing factor personally. Okay, so
we're getting into territory of like, would you consider Kratos to have a healing factor then, even though he does kind of the same thing?
also having the ability to heal, while it is a power, I wouldn't necessarily call it a healing factor. Whenever you hear healing factor, it tends to be more of an unconscious, instantaneous thing. But like when you have someone like Kratos healing themselves, they just have the power to heal. I'm not sure if I would call that a healing factor. Okay, infinite fighting variations. Copy enemy martial arts perfectly. Understand them at a deeper level than the original practitioners. We're repeating ourselves. There can be one Hokuto successor per generation. Technically yes, technically no. Kenshiro is trained since he was a child and elevating the martial art. Not Jaggy, he sucks. You know, Jaggy's not bad. His bro's just better. 100 punch, which causes you to blow up.
Jaggy looks like he's better than every martial art, like most martial artists in fiction.
Healing factor is something akin to automatic regeneration. Being able to force your body to regenerate is healing. You can say it's not an instant healing factor. I would just not call it a healing factor. I would say it would just be the power to heal. It just wouldn't be a very crazy one. Because we also don't see, because again, like to provide an example in Fist of the North Star, we have a character with a healing factor in Ray Gaiden. Ray slices his chest open and the guy bleeds out on the floor. Ray turns around, the guy gets back up, and Ray's like, what the fuck? I'd show you guys the panel, but Ray Gaiden, softcore hentai basically, so I don't want to show nudity on the stream.
Coward.
Did you just call me a coward?
Coward.
For the art of dragon's breathing unlocks the hidden 70% of every human has, granting the user effectively a 3.33% multiplier increase. So he says ordinary man can only use 30% of it, but I can use 100%. It affects strength, durability, and speed. Let's see that speed. So this is him in base. He was already able to keep up with them without going 100%. But this is Regenesis, yeah. This is the artwork. This is the sequel series. Also, he's able to keep up with them too, even without 100%. So if you believe, so that guy is on the verge of death. So if he can keep up with their attacks and Kenshiro needed 100% to keep up with them, that's kind of sad. But he didn't need that. He just did it because it's better to fight in that form. You know, it's being used when Kenshiro powers up and his muscles rip through his clothes. Valid. Yeah, this is a Toki chopping strike. This just kills you in 3 seconds. Okay, so these are just examples of how he kills people. Nothing crazy. Makes people seemingly harmless sequence of kicks that massively decrease the opponent's muscle strength. Yeah.
Seeming that they don't mind using gifts, why don't they just use the Stranger in Paradise gifts of the killing techniques?
That's a good point, actually. An evasive maneuver that renders attacks from any angle futile. True. Yeah, kenshiro can also just remove the strength in your body and like liquefy your muscles from the inside out. Yep.
If you also listen to him, if he tells you not to move, don't move because you'll probably live.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So we're giving him right. They're giving him anime shit. A technique specifically meant for destroying the corpses of the undead. So this one actually ends up being kind of funny. The creator for Fist of the North Star really did not like how many Nanto practitioners showed up in the anime. So he specifically went in for the season 2 to make sure they wouldn't create like slice of life enemies. Or not slice of life, but like I guess enemy of the weeks.
Do
Strike
we
center, press
ever
punch, stupid rigor, making it so target's ribs are crushed and open outwards, expanding their chest. Yep.
do we ever release date yet for the new anime?
Next year, apparently. A secret stance that makes one's defense so flawless it cannot be perceived. Can I have a scan for that? No, no, you just can't see their movements. Their defenses are so flawless that there are no vulnerabilities they can exploit.
Is there a semi-colored version of the manga that I'm not aware of?
So if you buy the Ultimate Edition, some panels are colored red for some reason. I think it's to like show blood or something, or like a battle. I never bothered looking into why it is. I should probably look into that.
Huh.
So
I was just wondering why the panels with the fight against Madara are fucking red.
during a fake fight with Ray, Kenshiro used in conjunction is a signal to mutually strike opponents' pressure points and to state of fake death. So this one's kind of weird. They're not striking each other, but they're not trying to at that point. They're trying to trick the guy to believing they're going to kill each other. So this might be a case to where they're making it seem like their defenses are impenetrable and just acting the role. But Ray and Kenshiro at this point were
Isn't
practically equals to each other, so it might just be that they have like that they just can't find an opening.
isn't it the fight where they're going up against the wolf of the Fang clan, and they're trying to get Ray back?
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that one's valid to use personally. I mean, is it possible that it's valid? Sure, but that one's a little iffy. Yeah. So this one makes people walk backwards forever. Technically, he walks back till his death. This one compresses. Oh, did not gonna show how he kills him. Okay. A powerful Hokuto secret technique traces the blind spots in a movement that creates after images for the Big Dipper and targets those points to kill even the strongest opponent. I'm going to give a hot take here. Kenshiro doesn't have that technique. Hot take. Ryukin never even taught it to Rao, and Rao and Kenshiro were neck and neck for successorship. He might not even have this technique. Especially if we're not going to give him Somryu Tenha. Yeah, this attack's just straight bullshit. Just disables your hands. Also a technique only does. I mean, like, I guess the logic was we're giving him everything Hokuto Shinken has, and that's fine. But like, if that's the logic, there's oh, hold on. Oh, a technique that sends the opponent's souls to the afterlife and completely disintegrates their bodies. Yeah, that's valid. Uh, the user throws 1,000 palm strikes in the form of protective dome around them, acting as a means of both attack and defense. Oh, so they do give him the Somryu Tenha. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, they can give him Ryuken's techniques. Yeah, so this one's supposed to be on impenetrable. Yeah, okay, cool. Hang on. Keiko. After another secret breathing technique by inhaling more than normal, Hokuto user can massively increase their aura, granting a giant power boost. It is used by Kasumi Kenshiro to overpower 2 giants in when Toad is 100% mode. Kenshiro seemingly uses technique in bonus chapter 136.5, where it shows the user also grows slightly in size. Okay, thanks for the fucking link. It doesn't work. Let's see here. A secret technique of Hokuto Shinken, passed only to the sole successor. The user transports himself and the opponent to a void of nothingness. Valid. Guidebook scan. No. By Alicia Massive Tokyo Aura and nullifies all key techniques and barriers, forcing both to kill each other with their bare hands by passing a location called the Barrier of Death, from which the fight can only end in death. As they cannot evade or retreat from the opponent's fist, before that, the fighters are fighting in their heads and reading each other's moves with precognition instinctively, killing each other multiple times. In Legends Revive, is described that heaven and earth are erased, and that Someryu Tenha is a separate realm. Valid. Wait, where did it say that? Where did it say heaven and hell are erased? Okay, yeah, erasing heaven and earth. Perfect. Somerville 10 of the separate realm. Yes. In this realm, yeah. Muso Tensei just becomes state of nothingness, impossible to predict. Intangibility appears though they're vanishing in thin air, creating afterimages, clone-like illusions. Original body is impossible to locate. As is the ultimate technique of Hokushinken to save, I'd rather make every other Hokushinken technique useless. The techniques will obviously include Tenha Katsu, which can hit opponents that can become intangible. Again, it can't do that. And that can send souls to the afterlife. Hokuto Shinken successors such as Kasumi can even directly touch souls and ghosts. It is unlikely that any special characteristic Kenshiro or Rao don't have any regarding unnamed powers. So this is the spirit of Seto Geiken. This is a ghost, but the ghost is fighting him, so I don't know how that works. If you Wolf Soul Guidebook,
I was gonna say, do you have that one?
yeah, I do. Same guidebook. Okay, so they do include it. The ghost of Sete, who had a grudge, became a wolf to Kenshiro. Yep, that's fine. If that's what you want to go for non-physical interaction, that's fine. But I don't think that ghost demonstrates non-physical interaction at any point or non like intangibility. The weakness of Muso Tensei lies in spatial distortion. More specifically, Hokuto Ryukin's ability to distort space and destroy the nothingness that comprises Muso Tensei with abilities such as the Onryu Tenha, making the user revert to a normal state. Kenshiro, however, has overcome that weakness and is no longer vulnerable to its effects. Okay, so to clarify something for a minute, when Kaio states that he's going to destroy that nothingness, you now have to give that ability, like, I guess it's void manipulation, technically? Because it's not just normal spatial manipulation. He's claiming he can destroy the nothingness Kenshiro becomes. Now, of course, you could make the argument that statements aren't valid from the characters using the attack, but at that point, it is what it is.
Well,
Non-physical interaction.
at that well, at that point, you wouldn't trust anything anyone says, especially Kenshiro, about these end techniques. Because you have to look at it in terms as well, and it's like, what reason do they have to lie?
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So being able to touch ghosts directly and directly describing the guidebook to be a ghost. Yeah. There's nothing indicating this ability specific to Kasumi as he shares all superhuman traits with Kenshiro. So if your argument is touching the ghosts, then that's fine for non-physical interaction. Because we're assuming the ghosts have like a non-physical existence here, though. Precognition. Is this resistances? No, these are just abilities. Predicting attacks via reading subtle eye and muscle movement. Predict enemy attacks after a single study. Other Hokuto masters, such as Kasumi, can perceive extremely small openings and move and predict their movements. Kasumi can also play entire fights in his head, reading 2 steps ahead of his opponent. Hokuto Shinken masters can anticipate techniques based on subconscious reflexes. Information analysis, reactive evolution, adaptation. Yes. Accelerated development. Yes, that's fine. Went from being blitzed by Souther to blitzing him in mere seconds. Okay, I'm actually gonna have some beef on this one. So he was blitzed by Souther, but he's still able to react to Souther's moves. Also, by this point in the story, Kenshiro's stronger than Souther. So Kenshiro can fight people on Souther's level. Him being able to blitz Souther isn't entirely accurate. Weapon mastery, enhanced senses, technique mimicry, extrasensory perception. That's fine. Stealth mastery, yes. Sound mimicry, able to mimic many sounds. What?
Actually, if they're going to give Kenshiro everything, are they going to include the panel where he kills the cockroach with pressure points and the robot man at the end of Strangers in Paradise?
They haven't yet, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, they would, wouldn't they? Because they said that they're accepting all of that.
They should, but we'll see if they give it to them or not. We still have to see what they're willing to give. They're giving him the other branches of Hokuto Shinken. Kasumi creates a technique based on this fighting style, but I don't know if you give him the whole fighting style. This one's a stretch. So, for context with Taiyan, was the cockroach fucking spin-off? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yeah, like
Just remember that.
Yeah, because I remember you sent me that panel once, and I'm just like, that's fucking insane. Because it's supposed to be a comedy thing with all the characters, isn't it?
Yeah, it's supposed to be quote unquote what would have happened if the bombs never dropped. Oh, how big was the cockroach? It was a decent sized cockroach. So, it specializes in channeling energy to allow the user to pierce through anything and even phasing through bodies. The reason I don't know if this is valid is because Taiyan doesn't really use this fighting style. He uses it once, to be fair, but this isn't his main fighting style. These techniques are different from the main branch. A kick executed at blinding speeds that surprises the opponent. Ah, I see. A barrage of kicks so fast that the opponent isn't even able to see them. Where's the guidebook scan? You have the guidebook. So where's the scan? Yeah, they can make perfect holes in items. Possibly phasing. By using Hokutoken, Kasumi is able to push his finger inside a man's brain and press a pressure point. There's no wound left after he takes his finger out. This one's a little weird because technically it would be some degree of phasing, but they also make it clear that there are characters who can actually phase through shit more clearly in Regenesis. So this one's weird. Also, to be fair, there are people who can wound the body without leaving a mark on it. In the island of Asura, one of the generals claims he can tear your organs out without leaving a scratch on your body. So take that one as you will. This is Rao's Fist of Strength. Specializes both physical and key attacks to aim to utterly destroy opponents' overwhelming power. Is an instinctive style, and its practitioner fights without thinking. True. Kenshiro learned it from fighting Rao and should be capable of reproducing all of its moves, including the ones performed by Toki. Yep. To be clear, this is a lethal attack. I believe the guidebook does state that it's supposed to launch a lethal counterattack. So Toki surviving this is actually impressive. Yep, powerful vertical chop. Yep. No, Kenshiro cannot copy this one. This one, I believe one of the guidebooks directly states only Rao can perform that technique. Something about Rao makes this like his technique. An attack in which you channels their entire soul into their fist to finish the opponent's single blow, extremely dangerous and impractical to use. I mean, it's impractical in the sense that there was no other attack to use at that point. Accumulates energy. Yep. Toki's techniques with the Fist of Strength. This actually was the point where Toki won the fight, unfortunately. That's what I meant by no visible wounds earlier to your skin, but major damage within earlier. Yeah, but that wouldn't be a healing thing though. That's what I was getting at. The Fist of Compassion is Toki's version. It's the most fucked up fighting style in the series, probably. Making their heads explode without them feeling any pain, making them basically come as they die, cause them to pass away peacefully without pain. It has also been shown to purify the enemy of evil influences and turn them to dust before sending them to the afterlife. Mm, uh, I believe this technique also it liquefies your muscles as well. Why the fuck is he looking like Jesus? Because that's nuclear apocalypse Jesus. Did you remember Kyle in the fucking Legends Revived game where Kenshiro finds Toki and tells him, Toki, you've gotten so thin, and Toki's still fucking just shredded.
That's just a series in general. You're so thin, shredded than most men.
You're so thin, you would have trouble winning a bodybuilding competition right now. It's actually funny because if you see Toki before his disease, he actually is skinnier than the fucking diseased version.
You're so thin. What did they feed you? Creatine. Only creatine.
Hang on, let me see. Let me see if I can get a picture of him real fast. Uh, dang it. There's no good pictures of him? Dang it. Nope, there's not. That's so annoying. Listen, all you need. Oh, here we go. Kenshiro looked at this man right here and asked him, "Why are you so thin when his arms are that fucking massive?" Toki, why don't you look like your brother?
This is not training, by the way. This is as he's opening up the cell. Mind you, Toki is probably still more stacked than Kenshiro at this point. This is from a
Um,
series where even the fodder are ripped.
Dude's forearm is bigger than my torso, and he still calls himself fucking thin.
Isn't the only fat person in the series Heart?
No, there's a few other fat people, but even those fat people are fucking massive. All right. Gento Goken completely obliterates the opponent at the cellular level. Yep. Since Kenshiro, like other Hokuto Shiken, able to master and copy fighting styles after a single encounter and has copied Gento Goken by himself after fighting. Wait. And has copied Gento Goken? I'm gonna need a source on that claim. So while Kenshiro should be able to perform Gento Koken as far as I know, he has never demonstrated using Gento Koken. It's the only fighting style besides Hokuto Ryuken that he never uses shit from. It's kind of weird.
Does he
Uh
ever use from the Fist of Strength?
yes, he uses a couple of Rouse techniques when he's about to die. If Brawly showed up in Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro would be like, you're still smaller than Rao." Giant
Broly,
key attack, yeah.
Broly, you're so thin.
Oh,
What happened?
wait, no. Oh, I'm gonna need a source on this claim. Or the no. Okay, no. I thought they were saying Kenshiro was using Gento here. Okay. Ooh. These are only in the anime. We have I think I told you we got new generals in the pachinko and mobile game to replace them. Yeah, so
No.
in the anime we had more than 2 practitioners of Gento Koken, and in the pachinkos and in the mobile game we got new generals that effectively replace these guys in the slot. We have a white light general, a red light general, and who was I think it was blue. I think the last guy was blue. This is Falco fighting him.
Anything
Yeah.
that has to do with the anime is new to me. I've only been for the manga.
The anime actually created multiple generals of Gento for Kenshiro to fight. It was actually kind of cool. It was actually one of the changes I did like in the anime. I always found it stupid that Gento only had two members the whole time. So I am glad that even if the anime is not canon, the pachinko machine versions being added to the game adds some degree of credibility. This technique just fucking blows. It's all just destruction on the cellular level energy attacks. Actually, did they give him his ice manipulation or not? Yeah, he does have some degree of ice manipulation, being able to freeze areas around him. Oh, yeah, that's fair. The 1,000 hands comes from Kyoko or from this technique, so that's fine. Uh, yes, it's just slicing techniques. An invisible strike that targets the opponent's tendon so blindly fast the opponent doesn't even realize they've been cut. Yep.
I can't wait for the game to be like it's only 18.
So this technique's already in the game. This technique is already confirmed to be 1,000 hits.
What are the quintillion fist?
Shut up.
18.
We're giving him, yes, it is stated that he does know all 108 schools of Nanto. It makes no fucking sense. Well, it says one of his strengths that he's able to use the techniques of Hokuto Shinken as well as those of the 108 Nanto schools. It doesn't say he knows all of them, but he would know all the ones that matter. Ray, he's able to cut enemies so finely that ligaments could regenerate if they stood still for a few seconds, meaning the style has absurdly high cutting power. I believe someone calculated this to being like subatomic cutting power, and this isn't even Ray at his strongest. Ray's technique gets better as time goes on, so his cutting technique would be even superior to this by the end of the Gaiden. Yeah, infused life force, double-handed dive. Yeah, so that's Ray Gaiden. I have to be careful here on what they show for Ray Gaiden. Yeah, vacuum waves. Ray's master. Giving him Shin's techniques is fine. Shin has a few more techniques to be fair, but that's fine. It's not crazy. Souther's techniques. Kenshiro demonstrates Souther's spear throw in the anime, but I don't know if he does it in the manga. That can phase through the opponent. No, he can't. That's wrong. The user releases a rapid fire fist attack to discombobulate their opponent. Discombobulate, huh? Shu's techniques are fine. Kenshiro directly uses them. The user spins their hands, creating an illusion, distracts the opponent, and leaves them open for an attack at their blind spot. The attack is a thrust with both hands aimed at their neck. So, from what I remember of the guidebook and what the actual manga says, it's not that he gets distracted. Kenshiro loses all of his senses during this technique. The guy shuts down his senses. Ryuga's technique is garbage, so we're not going to worry about that. Resistances. So this might look like a joke, but this is the frictionless spin. It is actually a very powerful technique. I love the way the anime animated this. It's fucking fantastic. Resisted hypnosis, resisted fear and empathetic manipulation. Ki, yeah, it can counter his ki being absorbed. Pressure points, yes, counter pressure points. Can counter precognition. Early series Kenshiro could already negate precognition. Yeah, this would be the kernel. Yeah.
Do you think the new anime will make it just as silly?
I hope it does. I hope it does. It has to.
No, it just cuts back to the 80s anime.
That would be perfect. Yeah. Men of Hokuto are capable of changing their fates, and their future is impossible to predict. Illusions, radiation. Scaling from his brothers, who are also Hokuto practitioners without any special characteristics besides usage, Toki could live for years after surviving being bombarded by radiation for 2 weeks and receiving a dosage 5 billion times higher than the one that would kill a normal human. I believe this is a guidebook.
Jaggy? Oh, there it is.
No guidebook scans? I believe there's a guidebook that confirms this. But apparently none of their links work for Fista and North Star. Go figure. By garbage, you mean Soul's JJK, but isn't good and Fist of the North Star? Possibly. Jagged's right being caught in the explosion of a nuclear bomb. Okay, so this gets into a fun conversation as to we don't know where a lot of people in Century's End were when the bombs dropped. Jaggy canonically would have to survive the same radiation Toki did, but multiple secondary sources imply Toki had a secondary disease besides the radiation that fucked him. Poisons. Kenshiro resistant poison the gas that paralyzed a normal person, as naturally resistant to all poison substance thanks to his bloodline. Mangler was not a fan of that reveal
Oh, what reveal?
about Kenshiro's body being able to resist his the poisons. Can endure 5 times lethal doses of acidic and alkaline
Why?
substances. Why?
Yeah.
He felt it was a bit
Yeah.
silly.
That's what stumped him. In his entire series, that's what stumped him.
Pain ignored the pain of having his torso stabbed by multiple needles that sucked out blood from him, gets routinely stabbed by weapons and continues fighting. Electricity, completely affected by the electricity of a gate that killed a man and would burn a normal person to the crisp. Fire, Kenshiro could withstand a barrage of flamethrowers and grab a volcanic rock barehanded just fine. Scales to Rao, whose body is completely impervious to flames that could burn normal people to death. Superior to Jaggy, who in his guiding could withstand the heat of a nuclear fireball. Destruction cellular level could tank Gento Goken attacks, which completely disintegrate opponents on the cellular level.
Actually, if they're gonna do pain, why don't and they're doing the anime? Why don't they have the scene where he walks through a collapsing building?
That's a good point. So this is from Jaggy Gaiden. For a lot of people debate where the bomb was near Jaggy, so they kind of have been debating this calc. I think the calc's still fine for scaling, but they claim the bomb wasn't right next to him when it blew up. So I don't know. Take that one as you will. I love the skull here. This was such a good choice on the artist's part that the skull just covers the planet.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. That's cool. You can't argue that because the blast wave still hits him.
Can contain Gento Koken, which completely disintegrate opponents on a cellular level.
So even if he's not at the epicenter of the bomb, he's still taking the full heat as well.
Yeah, no, it should be fine for scaling, but you know how it is. That's Jaggy. Bro looks scrawny. So a lot of the guidance do not draw the characters as muscular as they are in the main series. That's kind of why I feel like the guidance are the more accurate representation of what the characters look like. Don't worry. By the time Jaggy arrives in Century's End, he is the same muscle, fucking, roided out freak he is in the main story. Yeah, so that's Jaggy before the bombs drop and before his girlfriend gets gang raped to death. Poor Jaggy. For all the shit he did, the guy actually makes his life a lot shittier. Evil Ryu. During his journey to become a true martial artist, Ryu had fallen into the corruption of the Hado several times, becoming a raging warrior who seeks only bloodlust. With the Satsui no Hado's capabilities becoming proportionally much greater, as previously stated, being able to use many of his abilities with greater potential for annihilation. Though it should be noted that Ryu had to master the full potential of Dark Hado and likely never will, since cleansing him of it in the power of Mu. Discovered by Goken in his aim to make a style of self-control. Power nothingness is a state of spiritual and mental refinement where the user is in complete calm and free of desire, pure nothingness. Normally extremely difficult to learn and control due to its passive nature, but when fully unlocked, the master has potential to surpass even the Satsui no Hado. Ryu first unlocked it during his fight with Seth in the ties that bind film and easily overpowered him with a sin machine counting his power so ridiculously high to be so ridiculously high to be exactly measured or exactly analyzed. With such a power in his hands, Ryu is no longer taken in by the Dark Hado and knew how to push forward in more ways than one. He's able to use his ki to once again enhance his attacks using the electricity properties of Denjin. Or phase full energy beams through people to focus on what not to target. Okay, let's go. Let's see that shit. Okay. Okay. That's pretty good. All right. I mean, I know he's supposed to be the butt monkey of the franchise still. So is Evil Ryu considered a villain? Yeah, that was pretty good. All right, Ryu. I'll give you props. You got better energy control than Goku. I'll give you props. The power of nothingness is capable of holding back and purifying evil energies, like the time Goku was able to briefly seal Ryu's Satsui no Hado away for some time, and Ryu was capable of fully purifying a dark Hado from his body once fully unlocked. He has even done the same with other evil energies like M Bison Psycho Power, with the Dictator fully crumbling into dust after taking a full powered beam from Ryu. Wait, we're giving him a beard? Udon presents an interesting alternate path for Ryu in Street Fighter Unlimited. Similar to his game counterpart, Ryu had been seeking a way to rid himself of the Dark Hado, however, unconsciously created two sides within himself as alternate personalities, constantly battling each other to see who would take control with each passing day. Still, instead of just embracing the alliance, suppressing the Hado, or fully rejecting his humanity and letting himself be corrupted, what if Ryu instead chose to welcome and balance both as one? This is the conclusion he came to after training with the Senjutsu Master Oro, attaining a whole new level of power after merging both halves that allowed him to defeat a Gil-possessed Alex. Now in complete communion with both positive and negative energies, Ryu is able to utilize both his normal and dark Hado abilities of Evil Ryu to their fullest extent without risk of losing himself or control. He is also seemingly now capable of freely using many techniques from all across on Tatsuki Gallery like Metsu Shoryuken and Tatsumaki Gorosen from Goken. Exercise people with Taijukens, use telekinesis, create an omnidirectional wave of energy around himself to blow away people with Fudo Shin, jump across the world, and even use a Raging Demon, which sends souls to those affecting the afterlife. Oh, okay. So then Ryu beats this Akuma, but and then that's the scan they used. Wait. So you're telling me the scan from earlier wasn't even Ryu fighting in base form? It was a transcended form that beat Akuma? I mean, that's fine. It's just like weird. Oh, okay. So we do give Kenshiro his beard. Valid. Yeah. So that's just 100%. That's fine. Feats. Won the first World War Warrior tournament, overcame the temptation of Satsui no Hado, defeated fighters like Ken, Sagat, Sadler, Seth, Gil, and Bison. His power under a Sin Machine was too high to be measured. That was specifically under a specific circumstance, though. That was unless it's a different scan, but there's no scan for it. Helped in the terrorist organization Shadaloo, the very first Shoto, whoever Shoto and influenced many other fighting game protagonists. All right, let me grab a quick snack real quickly because we've been here for a bit, and then we'll continue. Let's probably get some more too. Yeah, this is the AP section. So let's see what they give him. Okay. Let's do this. Lifted a giant boulder, can smash apart cars, match blows with Akuma, blasted part of a skyscraper while under the influence of the Satsui no Hado, blew away a massive fire with Hadouken while teaming up with Sakura. Okay, so just him. That's it? That's better. Destroyed the Blease with a Shoryuken. What's the Blease? Oh, just a giant rock. Blasted Akuma with the charge Hadouken, creating an explosion of energy that can be seen from far away. Blasted only so hard it sent him through a mountain. Ryu's energy was used by Bison to power the Psycho Drive laser enough to destroy a city. Okay, pretty good. Okay, interesting. Has dodged bullets. Can block an attack from Ken with his eyes closed. Blitz C Viper. Move faster than the eye can see. Kicked a guy with wind pressure so fast that he only recognized the attack after the fact. Is fast enough to match blows with Shinakuma as Evil Ryu. Dodged an attack from Oni as Evil Ryu. Jumped from the Mediterranean Sea to the Irish Rock in Australia as Shin Ryu. Yeah, this is kind of dog shit, bro. If this is how they're treating Ryu, I can only imagine Kenshiro's gonna get fucking fodderized right now. Took a brutal beating from Seth, shrugged off, being thrown several buildings by Hugo, survived the Kuma blowing up an island with the Konga. Okay, endured being dragged through a building by Bison Psycho Crusher, took being knocked through a door, and not too later withstood his own Hadouken being reflected back at him. Had a hole blasted in his chest at one of Akuma's Gohados, later woke up from it like it was nothing as evil Ryu, bulletproof under the influence of the Dark Hado, willingly imparted himself into Akuma's fist to avoid being killed by Akuma Shingoku Satsu. Despite the blood loss, he powered through this and kept on fighting. Battle and defeat opponents such as Souther, Rao, Hio, and Souther. We're not gonna. I'm torn because I want to make fun of them, including Souther twice, but low key Souther is the GOAT. So, damn, that's tough. That's a tough one. But to be fair, there are better names on that list that could be used. Was the first Hokuto Shinken master to awaken Muso Tensei in 200 years. Where's the Akuma jumping to heaven feat? Apparently it's not there. Lifted the seals of Hokuto and became the most powerful Hokuto Shinken successor of all time. Helped give his post-apocalyptic world hope and lead it to a new age. Redefined Battle Shonen. Killed Cell. Okay, so we're going with some jokes there. That's fine. Okay, so let's take a look at the AP right now. This has got to be a joke. Okay, lift and push large boulders, can regularly dent in skulls with casual strikes, stomp two armored vehicles to crush them with bare hands, destroyed the floor of a helipad with a single punch, drew a giant mutated man and punched a hole through the walls of a nuclear bunker made of 10 tons of concrete and steel that can withstand a bomb, a hydrogen bomb, I believe, as well, an H-bomb. Punched a man's torso so hard to remove every single shred of muscle, flesh and muscle, leaving only his bare ribcage and spine in place. I believe that was multiple punches. Pulled Fudo out of a sand pit, a massive man that weighs over 300 kilograms, with one arm. Get it right. Created a massive tornado and a clash of auras with Rao, which disperses the sky, alongside Falcon split the sky. Okay, so at the current moment, they have AP and Kenshiro's favored. This, I'm actually kind of surprised. Has catched arrows several times even when sleeping. As a teenager, Bliss Jaggy striking house pressure once without even seeing it. Can move fast enough to leave after images. Move faster in eyesight to Souther. I would like to point out that Souther also. Okay, I'm actually gonna rep Souther some more here. So Kenshiro dodges the attack and then hits his pressure points. Souther laughs at him, the pressure points fail, and Kenshiro's chest gets sliced open. Because Souther had hit Kenshiro before Kenshiro dodged the attack. So faster in eyesight, it's just sidestepping. They're having a fight where they're both moving at the same speed. He just sidesteps the attack. He's just caught off guard. Also, could clash punches with Han faster than the eye can see. Intercepted multiple projectiles with a needle gun. Can deflect multiple thrown knives with nunchucks. Blitzed a group of men, moving the distance between his bow and theirs without them even noticing he moved while dodging dozens of crossbow bolts. Survived Shin, marking 7 scars on his body. Took a tank round point blank with no visible damage. Ignores Jaggy swinging and breaking a massive pillar on his body. Ignores a giant head of a statue found on top of him and continues struggling with Han. Got stabbed in his shoulder and thrown into a building, breaking a stone wall, but just gets back up. Gets launched into a building by Han, creating a huge explosion. Ignores being shot by multiple arrows in his arm. Ignored being electrified by a fence that could burn someone to a crisp. Is Kyle still in the stream or did he leave? As far as I know, Kyle's still in the stream, but he might be sleeping. Is he muted? Let me leave him. Let me leave him join real fast. Or. Let me share the screen. I guess I forgot. I guess I stopped sharing the screen after a while. But Kyle's probably away right now. What are other fighting game characters supposed to be embodied the same Shoto Fire theme, the same as Ryu? A lot of your generic fighting game characters end up being like Ryu. Did Ryu know that would happen at that time? Not too sure. Sorry, I haven't read in chat, guys. Weaknesses. With each victory also came an error for Ryu to learn from his limits. Many of his key or energy attacks continuously drain his energy, which each use as potentially implied by his conversion with Ken with this conversation with Ken, Street Fighter 5 story mode, and too much sustained damage and blood loss can put down Ryu just like any other man. Satsuno Hada also made Ryu quickly lose control and become a Raging Beast. Scaling. Okay, here we go. We're gonna give a bunch of scaling right now. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I was gonna say those numbers are way too whack. Well, superhumanly powerful, Kenshiro has limited success damage to his body, extreme blood loss will make him collapse and die like a normal human would, and he has a finite reserves of ki like everyone else. Debatable. That is very debatable if they have finite reserves technically, because I believe it's stated they have infinite reserves in the fight against Hio. I'd have to double check that though. While nothing canonically gives an exact time limit to Muso Tensei, it's unlikely he could stay in it for an absurdly extended periods of time. Bullshit. You are making an assumption. Wild. So Ryu could have killed Chun-Li and that little girl? Yeah, if Ryu wanted to, he could have killed them, yeah, but he has enough control over his own energy to not hurt them. Scaling, Ryu, the central figure. Okay, so who's he scaled to? Akuma. Destroyed a mountain by landing the Rage Demon on Goken. Akuma destroyed an island with a single chop. Oni caused a large volcanic eruption. Akuma created a large energy pillar. Akuma can perform 30 strikes in 1 second using the Raging Demon. Akuma destroyed a meteor, inapplicable. Check before verdict. Okay, so this right here. Okay, so it looks like here's where the good feats are technically. Street foes, 480 tons, kilotons. Mach. Okay, I'm assuming they're not going to give Kenshiro light speed scaling, even though they should. Call it a hunch. Destroys the head of a statue. All right, street gals. Nothing too crazy here. Inapplicable to mainline. Alias can attack at lightning fast speeds. Okay. Street Fighter EX characters. Okay, so we have some FTL feats. Oh, here we go. Darkstalkers. Felicia accidentally snapped a zombie's neck and avoid gunfire. Repeatedly, Jeddah created Mugen, a pocket of space-time between the human and demon realms to access a self-contained universe. It's described as a self-contained universe in the void between all dimensions where time. And after this, intercepted a Holt sea that was flying in space. Pyron consumed his home planet and traveled the first time to the universe to Earth over the course of 3 years. Okay, so let's go for Kenshiro scaling. 1.74 gigatons of TNT or Mach 250, 1.9 megatons of TNT. Has casually destroyed and brought down numerous buildings. Skyscrapers destroyed the top of the Demon Rock Castle. Ken got vastly stronger than his big brother by the end of the series. Debatable. He should be stronger, but vastly is a bit debatable. Jaggy survived one of the bombs of the nuclear war caused the apocalypse. Other works show the bombs causing gigantic air mass splits in the atmosphere and have stated that they have dried the ocean of the planet, split the Earth itself. 5.2 petatons of TNT. Check before verdict. This is a perfectly valid feat. Okay, Toki could have lived for years after surviving being receiving a dose of 50 billion. Why do we have a lot of check before verdicts? Like, I can understand the crossovers being a little debatable, but why the fuck are we getting check before verdicts for the main series of shit? His Tokyo aura unleashed by the stormy Utena technique dispersed a large storm formed at the start of the Hokuto initiation ritual. 2.13 teratons of TNT. That's actually wild. There's no check before verdict on Kasumi? Okay. I'm assuming this is the guidebook. Yeah, same scan. Can casually walk through an outspeed bullet, save the man who's getting hit by bullets 10 meters away from his eye using the Kiko technique. The Kiko technique was stated to make him move at lightning speed. Mistranslation. I can check the guidebook. I'm pretty sure it says move on lightning speed. Can fight on par with Fei Yan. Could fight on par with Lu Zongwu, even while both using the Kiko technique. Lu Zongwu could evade a strike to a pressure point from Kasumi in his forehead before it could completely pierce his skin, all while Kasumi was using the Kiko technique. Given Kasumi could attack accurately during Kiko, and Luzon Wu could evade an attack so close to him, in addition to being able to trade blows accurately, the reaction scale to the technique. So for context, the attack had already hit this guy when he dodged it. Like, the attack had already hit him. He just barely dodged it at the last second. Was capable of blocking Vanderkool's Tento Koken or Heavenly Dipper. Inapplicable? Oh, you fucking cowards. What the fuck? Then don't fucking mention it. Wild. Wild. Kaio. Destroyed the clouds over the entire valley just as Aura, stated by Juki to represent disaster in measurable proportions. Or are we not going to actually include the other scan? Okay, yeah, here's the other one, I believe. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Hio could press all of someone's 1019 pressure points simultaneously. Names, attacks tend to be literal to the series. So, I heard the Tales of the Legendary Assassin are one, two, three, four, five, six. So I'm gonna say it like this: if you're willing to accept the names of attacks being valid, there is more evidence that the attack is valid than not. I will say it like that. But Garuda can't. Okay, so we do gain light speed. If 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 we are going to give the names being valid, the 100 quintillion punch is completely valid. I want to see their fucking argument for why it's not valid. Given Ryu's desire to become a true martial artist, it shouldn't be surprising for him some upscaling would come with the territory. Normal abilities can do a shit, taking quite being against him, having his neck nearly cracked. However, with the power that these Ryu from being stopped, tired, defeating 7 notes because as soon as she even calculate his power is too high to be measured, going from many 999s to a number with many zeros. Implying massive power increase from Street Fighter 4 to 5 on after fully mastering it. Okay, so we're arguing insane gaps in power. Kenshiro can use the Tenryu Koken to boost 100%. Only got to multiplier. Base Kenshiro can do much as soon as 100% when he can fight Rao to a draw. At the limit of Tensei, he can casually match Rao and fight him with his power. False. He was already able to match Rao prior to that point. Meaning that unlocking Muso Tensei grants him power boost even greater than Tenryu Koken. After Rao also learned Muso Tensei, they were evenly matched. It is stated Rao gets a power up once he decides to fight Kenshiro. This means post Muso Tensei Kenshiro is much stronger than base Rao and his previous 100%, who are 3 times stronger. No. After the time skip, 100% Kenshiro was overpowered by Kaio despite using 100%. Kenshiro only gets overpowered because the fucking demon aura fucks with his mind. It subconsciously lowers your defenses. That's why Kenshiro's able to beat it later on. Kaio doesn't get massively stronger. It's just that Kenshiro figures out how to beat his technique. It's a technique that fucks with his shit. After Kenshiro's power awakened, he was able to easily match Hio, even after his Motoki aura awakened, and Kaio considered him capable of killing Kenshiro, despite being afraid of Kenshiro's power in the previous encounter. This is supported by Hio later stating that Kenshiro is not strong enough to face Kaio. Even after going through the same awakening as Kenshiro, Hio admits that Kenshiro will still beat him, even base awakening Kenshiro is at least 37 times stronger than his base starting state. After lifting the Hokuto Seals, Kenshiro matched Kaio's Evil Swamp, which increases power. Later, both of them raised their power to 100%. Meaning, end of series, Kenshiro. I don't know about all these. I don't know about all this noise. Again, the guidebooks don't support that scaling chain in the slightest, but I mean, pop off, King, I guess. Okay, let's go through. Street Fighter has a bunch of higher arguments that you probably seen that you. Okay, let's see. Street Fighter stats that Haggard's Power Driver from Final Fight Revenge. It's been calced to a variety of ranges, but no matter what it gets, it's always significantly higher than any other Street Fighter AP arguments. Moreover, however, this fleet is flawed to use. What is it? Well, it has been inflated in the past. The feat itself is fine in terms of large island to large country range calc. However, the game is pretty blatantly non-canon, as confirmed by the World Warrior Guide. Cody's profile says that he was arrested due to him committing assault, while in Revenge he was arrested due to being framed. Guy's zombie infection and revenge is also not referenced in his profile, and Belgar becoming a zombie isn't referenced at all. In addition, Belgar appears in Street Fighter V and is not, in fact, a zombie. Hagar's profile references the events of the other Final Fight games, notably not Revenge. In addition to the game itself, is not referenced by the guide in the guide by name once. You could say Puzzle's profile says she tries to frame Cody as a reference to Revenge, but it only says she tried, not that she succeeded. Considering Cody's profile openly contradicts that, and other elements of Revenge are shown to be canon. We can safely dismiss the games being non-canon, the fee applicable to the main Street Fighter. You could use it, however, for both the Final Fight cast and soft composites. But majority of the time, it'll be inapplicable to the main line. Okay, Street Fighter X. Street Fighter X is another one of various Street Fighter spin-off series that can be argued gets the series higher in stats and MTL speeds. However, when you look at it, it's pretty clearly non-canon. None of the original characters in EX are referenced at all in the World Warrior Guide, nor is it listed anywhere in any of the Capcom's websites detailing games canon to the series. In addition, EX itself, story-wise, just a retelling of Street Fighter 2 with different characters showcased by several such as Gaio and Blanca's. And even several guidebooks do specifically. It's a parallel world set during even Street Fighter 2. The game during development was originally named the Subtle Street Fighter Guided, meaning side story, adding to that status. Now, it's important to mention that Street Fighter EX has actually been referenced before twice in the main line, primarily in the Shadowloo CRI, and Zangief himself mentioning Duran Mister as his friend during the wrestling tour in India. The CRI even mentions that Duran gave one of his pieces for Street Fighter V's whole shindig with the Black Moon. However, this doesn't prove EX canonicity by itself. The Ruby Heart is acknowledged as canon too at some points. At most, this means characters can be canon if the stories are, and let's be real, going from Mach 960 to 340,000 or 3,400 times FTL is kind of a huge outlier. Even if EX itself had any acknowledgments in canon, overall, we decided to rule out EX as non-canon. As such, its anti-arguments are applicable outside of soft composites. Oh, good lord. Okay, we're just gonna skip through this portion because that's a lot of text. We're just gonna go down to the conclusion. The Uden Street Fighter comics are not canon, save for small specific exceptions that do not change anything in terms of stats. The Darkstalkers crossover in Uden comics is obviously not canon, and also does not change anything in terms of stats. The Street Fighter characters do not have a reliable or consistent scaling chain to the Darkstalkers top tiers at all. At best, ability descriptions from this continuity can be used. Okay, so that's what. So they just decide it's not canon based on the evidence they provide. That's fine. Meteors. The Street Fighter series has its fair share of feats involving meteors, some of which have been argued to be worth country and even multi-continental powers. Turns out they have either problems. They either have problems that make them worth much less, or are just unusable. Let's break the 3 feats down. E Honda's Meteor, Street Fighter V. The meteor seen dispersing clouds in the sky. That completely ignores the clouds seen on screen as they would not form all those altitudes. The statement regarding how Hawk and Honda could save the world if they worked together is pretty vague. That could be considered hyperbole. Given in the same game, the Black Moons are going to crash into the Earth in the story. Their stated destruction radius of 10 kilometers will pale in comparison to an actual extinction meteor, such as the one caused by the crater. Even then, no one in the entire cast was considered able to stop them, and the 2 wrestlers that performed the meteor feat didn't even try. Characters stronger than them, such as Jury and Chun Li followed a plan to stop them through different means that weren't brute strength. Pretty damning narrative evidence that Honda and Hawken wouldn't be able to stop extinction level threat. Gil's Meteor. Gil is not actually overpowered the kinetic energy of the meteor, he simply destroys it. More similarly, the feat performed by Jack Unit in Tekken Tag Tournament 2. We also have no way to measure the size of the meteor because of the perspective and time frame issues, so this feat is basically impossible to calculate without making unreasonable assumptions about size. Even if you assume it's a meteor the same size of the one that killed the dinosaurs, destroying it would be worth 901 megatons of TNT. If you were to fully scale the kinetic energy of the meteor to Gil, Udon most comics mostly aren't canon. And this one hasn't even been alluded to in the World Warrior Guide. If you want a soft composite, it would get 72 teratons. Okay. Shinakuma's Meteor. Perspective and lack of information make this meteor size impossible to be calculated with unreasonable assumptions and massively inflating the number. If you were to compare Kuma's size next to the curvature of the meteor, you would end up with a pretty low size too. Regardless, the fee is not canon, as Capcom Fighting Evolution is a crossover game with no story and characters from different time periods of Street Fighter, meeting characters from Darkstalkers and Red Earth. It is not present in the official timeline of Street Fighter V. It has no mentions whatsoever. Okay, so none of the meteor feats are valid. The Black Moons. The Black Moons have been argued to be really significant feat for Street Fighter series, which may make it a surprise that any mention of them up until this point in the blog has been absent, so an explanation in order. The Black Moons are Doomsday devices meant for Bison in Street Fighter V to increase cycle power, which are designed to also be able to disable electronics across the world. Now, the usual argument is that Bison was able to move 7 of them physically or psychically. but which would show grant which has been shown the graph server results, but both ends of this have problems. Let's just problems with the calcs themselves. The black moons cannot be as large as suggested. They would cross in the Earth's Roche limit if they had the mass of Mercury and were orbiting as close to Earth as suggested. Meaning the calc itself can't get into absurd ranges stated before. In addition, it's directly stated that the impact range would be 10 kilometers as they crash on the Earth. With the size suggested, the impact would have to be bigger than the surface of the planet, probably destroying the world. Reasonably, if the feat was accurate, then it would get much lower, likely in the island ranges. However, that leads to a second problem, which is that there's no feat at all. The scene used for the calc is Nikali showing Ryu Bison's plan in a vision. It is not an actual thing that happened. He didn't move the black moons to begin with. No one should scale them crashing to Earth or being put in orbit or anything. What about the EMP? Well, the thing is, no one scales to it either. In the story, the black moons were created to generate electronic magnetic pulses and cut power around the world to create chaos and despair, which in turn would fuel cycle power and make Bison stronger. The same applies to the planet, making him crash into the planet. Bison is not powered by the energy of the black moons dish out, so scaling to their detonation would be no justification. Let's assume that the people would scale to them for whatever reason. It should get... Hang on. It should get pretty high then, right? It would get 72 tons of TNT. The reason for it is simply because there's no air in space and we cannot treat it as a generic nuclear fireball and use the explosion calc. So we have to settle for luminosity. Actual nukes have been detonated in space about 400 kilometers below the surface. The 1.4 megaton created an orange aurora borealis effect visible from the ground, and their EMP reached the surface and disrupted electronics too. If one were to highball this feat by comparing it to the effect of an actual nuke, the radius of the pulse itself would be at least would be at most 5 times bigger, and therefore yield about 302 megatons TNT. Mind you, with this high end, it makes no sense that the nearby satellites will be completely vaporized. In short, higher ends of the black moons rely on completely incorrect interpretations of the scenes in question, as well as highball sizes that contradict Street Fighter V's story and the laws of physics. You can't scale anyone to either feats attributed to the black moons, and even if you did, they'd be relatively low numbers compared to other feats in the verses. So I'm going to offer a sort of comment here in the sense that the laws of physics are a little bit rough in fiction, especially when you're talking about characters that can potentially move at light speed. But if the game flat out says what the destruction output would be, you have to sort of... This one's weird, because this is where narrative comes in versus scaling, because if they tell you the radius of the destruction like landing would cause, even if you think it calcs higher, it's a very iffy situation there. Because there are times writers will say something for a feat and it's just wrong. But technically at that point, the narrative would have to take precedent. I'd ask Kyle about it, but he seems to be away. So let's see here. Ocean running. Street Fighter 6 granted another popular argument for speed via its assist mechanic, as you can call in characters in story mode who are in locations across the world to where you're at any time in a fight. They must be running there, right? The hell? Yeah, no, that's ridiculous. Guild parts to see. On paper, it seems like something that should be impressive. The fee had previously been calculated at island level and even large AP levels, but these calcs have fundamental logic issues that contradict real-life science. First of all, it is usually assumed that the depth of the ocean part is equivalent to the average depth of the ocean. This sounds reasonable until you evaluate this assumption further. The feat occurs very close to an island, a geological formation that sits over a continental shelf where the landmass of the island would logically extend further into relatively shallow waters until it reaches the edge of the ocean depths. In short, the ocean is much shallower when close to islands and continents, so assuming the average depth near an island to be 3 kilometers is not very sound. A much safer assumption would be use the height of the average mountain compared to the sea parting, which would get a much less impressive height. You could assume the ocean got shallower as the path to the island went, but there's very little indicating that in the art itself, and the distance would make it an extremely upturned angle. There's also the issue of narrative, in which it makes it clear it makes absolutely no sense for Guild to need to make a path that's kilometers wide for a couple hundred people to pass, making 90 meters, the result we got from the recalc, much more in line. Okay. Seraphic wings. Okay. Seraphic wings have been used to push some faster and light arguments for a Street Fighter cast, but as interesting as they are, they're not really applicable in any way. You can't compare real world science to things that happen in fiction. You kind of have to some extent because that's how we calculate. That's how we calculate. First of all, what is Seraphwing? Seraphwing is a super art from Gil in Street Fighter 3 and 5 that notably emits waves of light at the player. Naturally, the argument will be that as a result of this, if you would react to it, they'd be faster than light. However, it's pretty blatantly false for multiple reasons. First of all, the light blatantly shows force, which light can't do, meaning it's debatable if it's even light at all. However, the real problem is that you can't actually react to it in gameplay legitimately. The only way to react to it is either to use a glitch to be able to parry it in Street Fighter 3, but this would be the equivalent of giving Mario infinite speed due to BLG, letting him climb the infinite staircase in Super Mario 64. It's abusing a glitch in the game to do something not intended, not something the character can canonically do. As such, if Eric winning FTL arguments are dead in the water. More Cosmic Street Fighter. Applying universal level beyond reaching. The main method was using Taoism in the text story. A conversation between him and Earl gets him thinking about his yoga training and how meditations connect to the infinite vastness of space. Third mentions this in the winning quote Street Fighter 4. This means absolutely nothing for AP scaling. Meditation simply allows Taoism to get into in real life. It is a concept based in real life yoga meditation. Some people also argue that Guy and Akuma have planetary destruction statements. No, they do not. They are blatantly hyperbole. Akuma just destroys Iris Rock. The statement about him being strong, him and Earth statements are commonly hyperbole. There are way more arguments that people use, including Hager's power geography, arguing the Black Moons. Okay. Hager's Lightspeed statement. Mighty Final Fight is an obviously non-canon chibi spin-off from Final Fight, where Belger comes back as a robot. It's nowhere in the Japanese manual. Psycho Drive, Satellite, Moving Clouds, no time frame, lacks details. Scaling to full yield of Bison's self-destruction. The blast completely destroyed Bison's body and no one was at the epicenter. No scaling chain, narrative consistent. Karen 355 ending. Karen performance Nia said will overwhelm enemies up to 1,200 kilometers away with just the rhythm movement of her muscles. This is clearly not supposed to be treated as a perfect line directional air blast, or else Shibuski wouldn't be standing right there beside her, performing the move just fine. It is just likely she can just project the vibrations up to that range to target specific individuals. Cammy's country busting statement in Cannon Spike is clearly in her being a deadly fighter and being able to kill a country's worth of military, not being able to wipe it off the map, or else there wouldn't be used psycho drive technology. They wouldn't be able to use psycho drive technology to accomplish destruction on a far smaller scale. About Cannon Spike, this explosion has been calculated at eye level before, based on extremely generous assumptions. Looking at more reasonably, the feet land comfortably at the megatons. Bear in mind, Cammy shouldn't even scale to the full yield if she wasn't in the epicenter. Ozra's Wrath, come on now. Okay, Mom comes in when you include like side games and shit. Hang on. Ah. Oh, I want to go drink some water. All right. Anything new happen in chat? Nope. All right, let's continue. Higher Fist of the North Star arguments. Sure. Let's see. The ones you probably see in this blog. However, in most cases they either inflate or claim misinformation. Fantastic. Let's see what you have to say. In the chapter at the end of the Fist of the Sky, we see dragons incarnation hooked to fly to the Big Dipper constellation. The few panels, speed of the feet has been calculated a million times faster in light. This is not for to argue the scale of the speed of the characters, but this makes absolutely no sense. No one reacts to this, and it's a flight feat that we can't prove that scales to reactions. You could argue that Kiko technique stayed to be divine speed, or that Kenshiro being taken over by Angel God of War allowed him to scale to this feat by the end of the series, but at that point, it's just a massive outlier. Do you agree with the Karen and Cammy stance? So I would have to see these in question, but I don't even know what the fuck those feats are in question. I'm not too familiar with Street Fighter. It's gonna depend on how long it takes for us to finish this blog, and then we'll probably come back later with Kyle, or actually, I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening later today, because it depends on how things go. Might have a portal stream later tonight. So regarding the dragon speed feat has always been iffy because we don't even know if the dragon actually flies back to the star. He just flies into the sky and then the star blinks away. Or like it's sort of really no fucking link? There we go. So there's the dragon flying away. And the dragon just flies up to the sky and the star pops out. So this is the problem, is that the feat doesn't show the dragon flying to the star. It's debatable. It doesn't just disappear back to the star situation. Rao parting the sky high ends. You might have seen some calculations of Rao's cloud feed to get ludicrously high results. It can range up from country to multi-continental levels of power. The truth is, these are highly inflated in the North scientific property of air. The higher the altitude, the less dense it is. They also often use pretty unreasonable big thickness for the cloud instead of a safer low end, which ends up inflating the width of the hole as well. For our calculation, we use the low end cloud thickness estimation to be conservative, which led to a much lower end. Granted, this feat, which visually impressive, does not change the much grand scheme of things. Kasumi Kenshiro renders it irrelevant. The endless dimension and other cosmic arguments. Okay. While not exactly popular, you might have seen arguments floating around for Fist and North characters achieving star and even universe levels of power. Unfortunately, they're not very good. It's just the major ones. Starting from the bottom, we have the star level arguments. The first one's that Toki summoned the Omen of Star Death, and he means to scale star level. Yeah, no, that's not right. Two people look at the sky at the same time, same place. Yeah, is it? It's not so positive. Is a real possibility. You simply see it or you don't, and you can't stop. And you can stop seeing it if certain things happen. Change the possibility of your death. There's real cosmic body exists. Toki summoning it at best would relate to the ability of folks chicken, usually having the shaping their own fates, or that the star would be alluding to the future. Ra would die in the final fight with Kenshiro. No. The whole fucking point. I'd say it would also be a blatant outlier. Outliers are not necessarily the best way to argue for this, but that's fine. Jeremy, apparently he shouldn't scale. The second instance would be the Dragon of Hokuto scaling again. Some people assume that the creature flying to one of the stars in the Hokuto constellation would necessarily give it star level attack potency for some reason. It's the physical embodiment of the star and like the guardian of the heavens. That's probably why they would argue it had star level potency. Not only is the appearance of dragon extremely vague, but there's no scaling chain to it either, so nothing checks out, as it would be extremely outlierish for the verse. In short, none of the star level arguments work. You would argue based on scaling to the goddess of the North Star and stuff like that, because Kaio technically beats that. Then we have the universal arguments regarding law statements about some characters, techniques, potential to destroy the heavens, such as Rao. Heaven and Fist and North Star first, the entire cosmos is evident by the kanji used and how people become stars, die in the universe. Okay, thank you for at least getting that one right. The Dragon of Folk is stated to be the guardian creator, god of the cosmos. Not much to comment on destroying the heaven part outside of the fact of usage of Fireball here is extremely clear. On the Hokuto Dragon, the scaling chain has also been addressed non-existent already. So I don't know if hyperbole would be like the right call here. I mean, you could argue it's hyperbolic, even though the guides also say it in everything when they're describing what the techniques do. Fine, let's say it's hyperbolic. Your better argument would just be that it never demonstrates this, so why should we assume it's valid? I think some of them are fine, but at the end of the day, you know, how you want to scale statements is definitely up to you. Finally, also, for context, we recently got information from Blue Sky Regenesis from the author's notes for the chapters that heavily imply that cosmic level power is more consistent in the verse, since the author directly describes the new fighter's abilities as creating black holes and also performing explosions that are the most powerful explosions in the cosmos. So the idea of cosmic level scaling becomes a lot more solid with that information. In the final episode of the anime, Kasumi Kenshiro gets trapped in a solar pocket dimension by a technique called Black Gate Heaven Dead. The darkness which develops is called Limitless. He then proceeds to use Somi Utena to illuminate all of it, destroying the pocket dimension, bringing his opponent into the void created by the technique. This could be argued to use infinite universal levels of power. No, but that would be silly. Not only do we not know how literal the infinite part is supposed to be, there's no real evidence. There's no reason to assume that this is also not a weird space where space fluctuates. Takasumi immediately has a sensation of being in a void. We have seen techniques such as the Omri Utena distort space and gravity before, and Motoki Aura messes with your depth perception. Not to mention, for the millionth time, this will be a blatant outlier. Okay, so the problem is that a lot of these arguments are boiling down to just simply outliers. I'm not sure if, like... So, what is the consistency of the series, then? What is consistent? What do you define as consistency, then? Because, like, if we're calling all these outliers, how many of these have to happen before it might not be an outlier? All right, so they're just going to argue this is an outlier, 100%. In Chapter 6, yep, since number and name attacks involve punches hundreds, even thousands of times, tend to be accurate in the series, one would assume this attack involves user striking 100 quintillion times. Let's break this down. First, how do you get 100 quintillion out of these kanjis? First, attempt to Seiken, heavily dip or sacred phase martial art, which move belongs to, and show 100 quintillion imperial palm, specifically expresses 100 quintillion. Why does a kanji for that number exist? Long story short, Buddhism. Japanese and Chinese languages need ways to express absurdly large numbers in the sutras. So 100 quintillion is the actual number. So what does that mean? Well, if you take it literally, the user of this move would have to be striking 100 quintillions of times. Extremely conservative estimates put this around billions of times faster in light, with high ends reaching trillions. But is it usable? Well, on one side, the name is likely hyperbolic. You can't make the fucking argument that the attack names are valid and then argue this is hyperbolic. That's not how it works. Either you say it's not valid for the attacks and you go case by case, or you fucking commit to the fucking reasoning. That's garbage. We only have confirmation of attacks throwing up thousands of strikes at once, such as Heel's attempt, and throwing 10,000 punches with Manju. So it's likely to jump such an absurd large number of quintillion would not be literal. Even if it was supposed to be literal, this is a pretty blatant outlier for the verse. For the sake of consistency. Okay, so I'm going to talk about this technique. The man who performs this technique is part of a new fighting style that is the closest one can get to God. It is a technique that controls life and death. It is literally godlike abilities. It grants him intangibility, the ability to control life and death. It's the shit it can do is crazy. The reason it's 100 quintillion punches is to show that this divine technique is so massively beyond what we've seen before. That's why it's 100 quintillion. Because it's the closest you can get to God. You have to have a special DNA to even use the fighting style. So, no, it would not. If your argument is inconsistency, or that's fine, but you can't argue hyperbole when you're arguing it's valid. So, I'm just gonna say that's cowardly on their part. But let's see what else they have. Let's see what else they got. In Chapter 182 of Fist of North Star, Juki utters a relatively infamous statement about Kaio's power. According to him, Kaio's power, when released, will unleash a disaster of unmeasurable proportions. People have often used this to scale his power output to the entire nuclear war, which vaporizes all the rest of the planet. Let's investigate further, see if this checks out. Let's base our assumption on the original Japanese statement, which reads, meaning when that armor tears and crumbles, something tremendous will happen. The term... Okay, so hold on now a minute. So we're not using the officially licensed translations? We're using the official raw Japanese. I don't know how I feel about that, Chief. Like, I understand that the raw Japanese language is more valid if you can read Japanese, fine. But we have officially approved translations. We would go with the officially approved translation. That's how translations work. Because I can just argue that this interpretation is not canon based on what we have. Means something extravagant, absurd, unbelievable, preposterous, unreasonable, tremendous, huge in scope. Wait, did we not give Rao upscaling above Kasumi in this blog? They didn't upscale Rao over Kasumi, did they? They didn't. Okay, so the blog's already wrong because we can argue that Ryukin claims that Rao might surpass his wildest expectations and his wildest imagination, and Toki confirms he did it, and that would scale above Kasumi. That would be massive upscaling above Kasumi. Whatever. Okay, so assume Kyle's power being unleashed would be absurd in scope, even relative to Ergo. Kyle's power would be relative to superior to even the dried oceans. There are a few problems with this. First, it's extremely vague. Again, we have official translations to make it more clear. We don't know if Juki's thinking about the nuclear apocalypse when saying that at all, and no few before Kyle indicates it to be true. We would assume Juki has that as a reference point, though. If you want to argue like he doesn't specifically reference it, fine. But he says a disaster beyond like proportions, and he survived the nuclear apocalypse. We would have no reason to believe that wouldn't be included in the statement. Second, it could be very easily be hyperbole. Okay, so are we just going to? Okay, so is it every time there's a statement you guys don't like, are we just going to say it's not valid for whatever reason? Because like, if that's the case, just say Juki's not a valid source of information and move on. Kyle was stronger than any of the other fighters in the setting at that point, and Juki doesn't even know Kenshiro was strong enough to beat him without power limiters, meaning there'd be no one to stop Kyle from rampaging land if odds are out of control. You could argue a notion of surface wiping with the statement that Hokuto Shinken's successors can bring ruin to the world, but that's another clear hyperbolic statement. With Jackie's feat, this doesn't even matter as Kyle would reach similar levels of power thanks to multipliers and upscaling. Okay. Shadowless. Anyway, a few attacks of Fist and North Star could be argued to cast no shadows or be faster than light, such as Hans. The problem is that in this instance, the phrasing pretty directly implies that the shadows are too fast to be seen, not that they aren't being cast at all, so attack will be faster in eyesight, not light. This, however, the case. Okay, here we go. There's, however, the case of Zhang Taiyan, who Shadowless character stated to be too fast to create a shadow in the guidebook. Alright, valid. Yep. Yep. Perfectly valid. In Legends Ride mobile game, Taiyan's kicks are also stated to be too fast to cash out. What does that mean? Well, that is pretty vague. In the context of physics, shadows are created by an object obstructing the path of photons or light particles. Does that mean that kicking too fast to create a shadow makes you FTL? Well, it is fundamentally impossible to kick through already existing photons in the air without obstructing them, meaning that your leg would have to turn transparent too. Oh, that is such a massive fucking cop out. The statement is clear about being related to speed, so you could potentially argue it's supposed to be faster in light, but it is too vague and honestly scientifically impossible to be considered a reliable FTL feat. Okay, but at best, you can use it to support Garuda's speed of light statement, and at that point, it's not really relevant because it grants you the same thing. So here's the problem, and this is where this is disingenuous. If you accept Taiyan being FTL or comparable in Blue Sky, that upscales Lightspeed immensely. And that upscales all the fighters immensely if that early on they have Lightspeed attacks. But fine. Okay, so we're using Garuda as Lightspeed. Fine. Acceptable. Alright, let's see what else we have here. BLC okay, so should Ryu have the Satsui no Hado? For the sake of fairness, we'll account for both possibilities. First factory in Ryu at the middle of his journey going to Street Fighter 4, and this will potential with the power of nothingness. Okay, so primary nothingness. Of course, Street Fighter 4 ties that bind is powered by human energy, spiritual life force known as Ki. So cellular hacks resistances. Paraphrasing the movie, it harnesses human energy to cause a cyclic chain reaction by extracting ki artificially by subjecting from the device, resulting pulse resonates with the victims, causing the mitochondria to overflow with excess kinetic energy. The moisture within living tissue becomes a boil, causing an expansion of dead cells from within. Ryu's ki was necessary to finish the machine, as Satsui no Hado made him extremely powerful. Ryu's in Street Fighter 4, the blade starts extracting Ryu's Satsui no Hado from within his body, as the Dark Hado stole a form of ki, which causes Satsui no Hado to quickly start consuming him due to the blast's previously stated amplification. So Ryu's solution is to quickly destroy the machine before he goes himself in the kaput. In Sakura's ending, Sakura is knocked back by the machine's energies and has her energy within similarly manifest Dark Hado and her being similarly amplified. So there should be potential arguments for cellular resistances raised by a few, but given the situation how Ryu quickly destroyed the machine with Shoryuken before the process of combustion of ki took effect in the same ending, it's unlikely that neither Ryu nor Sakura ever did manage to resist it, so assuming this includes far-fetched. Okay. Ryu should still have Satsui no Hado because his Shin form is the combination of that and the power of nothingness. It looks like they're just focusing on more direct versions of like power of nothingness. An argument in the past that Street Fighter characters should have non-physical interaction to being able to hit Kagi, the embodiment of Satsui no Hado. Unfortunately, these claims aren't really true. As stated twice in the World Warrior, Kagi is an entirely physical being referred to as such not once but twice, hitting or interacting with him. Okay. Are Hokuto Shinken pressure points really durability negation? While relatively unpopular, you might have heard the argument pressure points attacks aren't actually forms of ability negations, just the concerns around this. First, by explaining how Hokuto Shinken works. So there's a valid case against there's a valid case here. We'll see what they say. Hokuto Shinken is based around hitting the 7 or 8 meridian points of the human body by that accumulate ki. The user then sends small amounts of their own ki into those meridian points in order to create many different effects, often expanding the target from the inside. The martial art also to clarify as well, the reason why Taiyan's light speed matters a bit is because Kasumi massively upscales above it, and you would argue Kenshiro upscales above Kasumi. But even then, there's still massive upscaling based off Garuda, but they probably will mention it. To counter the counter to Hulk to Shinken has been being durability negation lies on claiming that since the user has to transfer energy into someone to explode the body, the target's durability can't exceed the maximum amount of energy the user can emit, or else the energy wouldn't be enough to kill them. This argument, however, doesn't make much logical sense. By that logic, any killing blow dealt by Hulk to user to an opponent of equal strength would simply kill the user by proxy, as they would be spending lethal doses of energy. It also doesn't explain the diverse non-lethal effects. If this was true, Kenshiro would have dropped dead after he killed Kenshiro would have dropped dead after he killed Salder, as they were evenly matched in physicals during that fight. If you were to argue that the user transfers into an amount of energy in order to kill someone on the same level, you would fall in the fanfiction territory. So Kenshiro stronger than Salder during their fights. How much energy do they transfer in comparison to their strength limit? You have to simply make up a ratio of energy lethal in order to accommodate that notion. Hell, why even target specific pressure points for that, they can just transfer energy and explode people anyways. In truth, they just likely that the user doesn't do that at all. Like in the world of acupuncture, Hoto Shinken should just use ki in order to disrupt or stimulate the flow of ki and trigger effects based on target's own energy. But what about Heart? The fat guy negated Hoto Shinken by being fat? Well, that's a different argument. Heart's fat body made it so that Kenshiro couldn't directly touch his pressure points, so kind of use kicks in order to spread his belly and attacks pressure points more directly. This will imply that one needs strength or a perfect stance in order to touch the pressure points. Toki's fight with Rouse supports this. Toki failed to hit Rouse pressure points and kill him because he wasn't strong enough to reach them at all at the time. That would be a correct assumption. However, there's one thing that has to be considered: key and phasing. Also, I think his Shin form is now Ryu's base form. In the Uden comics, it is. Key techniques such as Ten Akatsuki and are able to ignore this problem because they can phase through the enemies, hit pressure points, no fingering required. Says Toki was strong into his pressure points, strong implying Rao would die if he did. Yeah. Ki is not even the only way they can phase through his skin, which Tensei allows them to phase through, and Kento Shonen allows them to turn fist detachable, still hit targets. Don't forget the Hulk Shinken's abilities that can simply decrease target durability that can be triggered with Ki from afar, rendering the turn in his fight with Ki do. Yeah. Oh no, it's pretty clear that they have both a narrative and logical perspective that the lethal effects of Hulk Shinken should be considered a form of durability negation. And that arguments against that notion fall into the multiple contradictions of substantial claims. All right, you might have read Jaggy and Toki's feats and thought, hey, wouldn't Toki be gaining significantly Jaggy's feat durability an outlier? Why can't Toki even need nuclear shield to start? In truth, these are valid concerns, but context elucidates this. Why these cases don't necessarily contradict or break the same fallout. First, the reason Toki got sick was because he got exposed 2 weeks worth of radioactive fallout. It wasn't just an explosion; it was a concentrated, nonstop exposure to gamma radiation for 36 hours. It wasn't just being exposed to radiation made him sick, but with the absurd amount that his body absorbed. Even then, at least a year passed between those events and where he dies in the series, meaning his body is obviously more resistant to it than normal humans. It is even contradicted because of what happened to Toki is shown in Jaggy's Gaiden itself. Yep. Toki and Ken were also with Yuria, who's a normal human, obviously needed shelter to survive. Bear in mind, Jack is not a normal human either. He has superhuman stats in both his guide and the original series, so him surviving while normal people died isn't a contradiction in itself. So him briefly taking on a single bomb would have diminished Toki's endurance. As for why is Toki's OVA footage being used to gauge the power of nukes? Simple. If you're going to stop composite Hokuto characters, you gotta assume Jaggy was there in that depiction of the bomb as well. We are never shown what Jaggy was during the bombs fell, except in his guide and Ryuken's Gaiden, and both depict him being outside a shelter when the nukes go off surviving. That is true. Every version of Jaggy shows him surviving the bombs. The original manga also depicts the nukes playing the clouds in the sky, so there's consistency to the notion that their explosions cause massive air dispersions. Inclusion, Toki contracting radiation sicknesses and Jaggy surviving a nuclear bomb are mutually exclusive fates and honestly contradict each other. The other reason you should mention why you use the Toki movie is because the author himself worked on those movies. So you would assume any sort of retcons that happen in the movies may or may not override the source material, because the author himself directly was involved in those movies and helped, I believe, fund and make those movies. So they are perfectly valid for scaling purposes. What are even Gaidens? Gaidens, in which the canonicity of the original story is often considered dubious. Let's address the status as part of the canon series and talk about the other auxiliary media of the franchise. What are official North Star Gaidens? The Gaiden series is a series of side stories set in the world of Fist and North Star stories set before during the events of the manga, offering different perspectives and focusing on characters like kenshiro. They also illustrated by many different young artists, as you probably know, by different art styles. Some notorious ones include Jaggy Gaiden, which focuses on Jaggy's childhood and explores what he did before the apocalypse and how he can be adopted by Ryuki, and Toki Gaiden. According to an interview published in Comic Zenny, translated for Silent Manga Audition, Tetsuhiro, one of the co-creators of Soul, author Fist of the Blue Sky, was revealed to be heavily involved in the creation and supervision of the spin-offs of his work. True. Offering his input, looking at the creation of every story, and stated that they fill in the gaps of the work he couldn't fill in himself. They also have to say that bringing the rears to the existing worlds of his creations, first reporting that they should be in the same universe. Yeah. Valid. Hang on. Like how Goku makes Super Saiyan God his base form? Yes. In the official Hokuno Ken website, many guidance are listed alongside the main series. These notably include Jaggy's Gaiden, which Boris and Hara listed as authors that pitched the story. The same term and credits are observed in all of the guidance. DDD Hokuno no Ken Ichiban spinoff is the only one supposedly stated to be in a what if scenario, meaning the others aren't impossible to fit into the story. In Tetsuhara's official website, Ray Guide describes as an essential work to understand the history of Nanto Seiken. True. The same source lists the community spin-off as a gag story of what if, solidifying the idea that most of the Perry spin-offs which also apply to Amiibo's Isekai manga. But are there contradictions? Yes. In Yuria's Gaiden, they show her meeting the Hokuto brothers in a different way than the manga depicts, with her dog being present in the original creation as inserted into the story. Tennohal introduces characters that are also present in Rauda and OVAs that don't exist in the original manga, as does Toki's OVA. Toki Gaiden and Toki's OVA both introduce characters that never pop up in the main story. That don't exist in the original manga. Contradictions and completely miscategorized the cast. Ryukin's special chapter, yeah. Although it's the most extreme case of all the Gaidens, Jaggy's Gaiden presents some inconsistencies established scenes such as Rao and Ryukin having their last confrontation in a different place than the original as well. There's an instance where a Gaiden kills off a major character from the original manga in a way that makes their appearance impossible in the original story, for example. A curious thing to note is that the OVAs in particular are frequently referred to as works expanding the original manga, exploring things that were left undeveloped. Yep, there should be a statement by the author. Yes. Which will fall under Hara's statement, using the guidance to fill in the gaps he couldn't have. From that point of view, it's possible that the contradiction is simply Tetsuhiro not really minding creative liberties, as he stated in the review that he wants artists to deviate from his manga on purpose. In spite of that, guidance such as Ray's are stated to not break the worldview, or as such as Ray's and are considered essential, as previously mentioned. Yep. Another important piece of the puzzle is Fist of North Legends Revive game. It is a gacha game, mobile game that features dozens of characters. According to Tetsuhiro himself, the game is supposedly a faithful representation, recreate the characters. According to his website, the characters are drawn under his supervision again and again, and the game supposedly faithfully recreate the original works. Yep. And interesting thing to know is that the game features characters from the Gaiden such as Ren, Ryu, and Rofu, and Garuda, who has his own Gaiden. Yep, it's valid. In conclusion, while Fist of North Star Guidance do present quite some inconsistencies and contradictions with the overall manga, the fact that Tetsuha's involvement, supervision, and overall motivations have allowed them to exist in flow space make them argument universes, or at least the Fist of North Star characters should be self-composited, with them similar to how Toei anime fillers included for Dragon Ball. For example, Legend of Vibe has been stated multiple times to be intended to be a faithful, and Zero as a horror having its actually praised by him, so if being used as supporting evidence should be fine. Guidance such as Ray and Garuda's fall under side stories with no real contradictions to the original story, really expanding on Tetsuha's supervision. For the sake of fairness, the Fist of North Star Gaidens that have contradictions to the original manga and extra material, such as video games and OVAs, would be equated as non-canon Street Fighter material and usability. Bullshit. Gaidens that do not contradict the original manga will be considered canon. So you're giving up Ryukin Gaiden, and that's basically it. That's not very fair. And the reason they're including the games is because they don't want to include Lost Paradise. They don't want to talk about Lost Paradise. That's why they're not including it. Uh, all right, let's read their final portions and then see how they give Ryu the win. Here's the gist. I actually do have fate powers and fairly strong ones too. Overall, Candace consistently describes man controlling fate and how he is sort of destined to bring peace to the world. But I think disagree with this one actually. Most of being shenanigans while Death's One Star. In their battle, Toki and Rouse essentially summoned the star. Toki would appear to be doing the dive, but Rouse spares his life instead. The most noble case of his power is how Nanto user Ray made the Death Star disappear by Mamiya by defeating Yuta, more or less changing fate for the power of love. Not quite. What Ray specifically says is something more along the lines of, let me die in your place. And that removes the Death Omen Star from her. It's only after Ray dies that the Death Omen Star leaves. What's the problem? Well, it's not complicable in any shape or form. Yeah. Alright. Imagine how uncharacteristic it'd be for Ken to be losing a fight and then go, you know what? Fuck you and your superior skill, fate magic time. Is Muso Tensei a transformation? Many people debate whether Muso Tensei should be considered a transformation in the same sense as Goku turning Super Saiyan and Supersonic. The main counter seems to be that it's called technique in universe and as such shouldn't count. Let's delve into this a bit deeper. This argument only exists because Death Battle users characters uses characters the strongest forms to decide the verdict. Therefore, a character that beats base Sonic will lose a Starfall Supersonic, for example, will be considered losing a battle, as they cannot beat Sonic as strong as this unspoken no blitzing before transformation rule. How does Muso Tensei fit into this? Well, it by all means fits right in and was the inspiration for many transformations. It shares common ground with the Super Saiyan as it needs extreme emotion from the user to be achieved. It has basically the same blank mind instinctive action. Idea behind it is Goku's Ultra Instinct and Ryu's no Ken state. Calling it technique is merely a case of semantics, as it basically allows Kenshiro to reach a whole new state of being and grants him a power boost when it is unlocked. Same for Rao. Again, he was already fighting Rao prior to unlocking Muso Tensei. So disingenuous. It is also naturally and automatically activated by the user, different from accepted transformations that rely on external factors and are still accepted to be a supersonic thing. The emeralds to be activated and the great ape needing to be absorbing the radiation. Even some vehicles are considered in the rule, so it doesn't make sense that Muso Tensei should be ruled out of the transformation rule just because it's called technique and called transformation. It's ruled out as a transformation because it doesn't transform him. It's a technique that lets him move between life and death, revolving around life and nothingness. Nothing about him changes. The sorrow Muso Tensei grants to make him stronger is just the sorrow he experienced. It's not a transformation, it's a fucking technique. Even then, why would this matter for the purposes of this versus matchup? Is this what's the purpose? If it's a semantical position, then why are we not accepting it as a technique instead of a transformation? However, for the sake of fairness, we will consider Muso Tensei something that has to be activated after the fight starts in the verdicts, ignoring the rule altogether to make this matchup more debatable. Oh, okay. Wait. So, is their whole position that Kenshiro would transform in the Muso Tensei and fight right off the bat with it? That's not even valid to the source material. Okay. No, it's a fucking technique. Literally stated to be the ultimate technique. Look, I get it. It looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. Fine. Wait, is that it? Was that the last thing they talked about? I thought they were talking about something else. Yeah, all right. All right, so I have not seen the verdict, but I'm willing to bet that Ryu ends up winning this one. But I don't think Ryu had any speed feats that come close to Garuda. So let's see how this goes. First match, we'll do something different. There'll be two verdicts, each one detailing the winner under specific circumstances regarding what material being used. For the first one, for certain kind of material will be used for Ryu. This means main timeline Street Fighter games are closely related material. Okay. Round one, strength. However, it's out to my Kenshiro showings is Falco. Okay, so Kenshiro. Hang on, let's see here. However, Kenshiro scaled the Kasumi Kenshiro, seeing as he stated to be the strongest man of Hokuto multiple times, and how he and his brothers brought Hokuto to the peak in the beginning of the series. This name was given by Koryu, who was just beaten by Rao. This matters due to Kasumi's own Fiasoma Tenna before explaining the initiation ritual storm. Okay, so they give strength to Kasumi, or they give strength to Kenshiro. Speed, however, has been more complicated. Both have showings of faster and eyesight and blitzing, while Kenshiro also dodging needles from needle gun. So pretty clear cut fair read. We're not really bringing back Kasumi Kenshiro. He had a casual feat worth Mach 22 in base. Thanks to Kenshiro being worthy of the title of successor according to Ken Shryukin, we can safely scale Ken in base at the beginning of the series to this, referring back to our table of multipliers for Kenshiro. This means in the series Ken is 122 teams faster than base Ken at the beginning of the series. I don't agree with this. Bumping his feet to Mach. Okay, it's 28 times faster. As we saw in the BTF section of the guidance, a few of them do not contradict the original manga that should be considered canonical. Use Tetsuhara, one of them being Garuda's. Garuda is certainly not on the level of the successor of Hokuto Shinken, ranked similarly low-level Nanto Seiken fighters, thanks to being outsped by Juza. Thanks to that, even base pre-Muso Tensei Ken should scale them, thanks to Garuda's Lightspeed statement, which has reinforced the Legends of Revive game for consistency. And Taiyan's Shaolin statements being fine for support. Ken's multiplier should make him 123 times faster in the speed of light and 100% power at the end of the series. So, to clarify, Garuda should be inferior to the Nanto 6 in ability, including Rei, who could speed blitz Juza. So the scaling chain, even without the multipliers, is still way bigger and way more characters involved than what's being discussed here. But yeah, Garuda's light speed. Abilities. Ability are something to specialize in. Starting with Ryu, quite different moves. If we allow Dark Hato's disposal, it gains limited teleportation, telekinesis. Yeah, valid. Ken's access pressure point, yeah. Okay, so Kenshiro just has more abilities. Skill. Okay, so in round one, Kenshiro just wins everything. You know what? I will actually give props to the blog. I was expecting them to argue in favor of Ryu, but now that we got I guess this is what they consider the canon rundown. Let's see how they argue for Ryu winning in round two. Okay, Kenshiro still has strength, speed. Okay, in terms of Ryu's best speed, scaling out still would be Crackerjack. Okay, so we're including the things they don't find valid for this one. So this is okay. So how does he win? Okay, what about abilities? Kenshiro still takes it. Skill. Really? I'm actually kind of surprised on this one. I was heavily expecting them to argue that Ryu was going to take it with the non-canon material. All right, let's read through this one actually. Tier team shaken up a bit as the best feature Ryu and Kenshiro with skill would be performed by characters that are from the top tiers of the verse. Thanks to the inclusion of Final Fight Revenge, Ryu can get feat scaled by Hagar in the game worth 216 teratons of TNT. Kenshiro, however, gets scaling the Jaggy, whose durability can be calculated at 5.2 paratons of TNT and is guided thanks to surviving a giant nuclear bomb. For some reason, the giant air split that visibly happens as an effect of the bomb has never been calculated, but thanks to Jaggy's feat Jaggy's feat has been greatly buffed, giving Jaggy's fodder even to early Kenshiro. Okay, so he wins strength, speed. Ryu's best speed feed calc will be Crackerjack through 3,400 times faster than light. Kenshiro's best feed will be scaling to Garuda, who's relatively weak in the grand scheme of things. His attack should grant baseline speed of light scaling and scale to Kenshiro at the beginning of the series. Thanks to multipliers. Okay. All right. In terms of movement speed, however, best we can give Ryu in terms of direct feats in his Udon comics, jumping feed Mach 3,940. But thanks to scaling the Hager, for Kenshiro, the Kiku technique is his best scaling avenue in terms of movement. As I saw in the previous rounds, multipliers upscaling Mach 3,700. See, so this is the problem: is that the Kiku movement dodges Taiyan's attacks, which are like the light speed supporting evidence. Abilities. By adding new sources to their abilities, creating new properties, namely Kitchen's Moves Tensei and the Raging Demon available to evil Ryu and Shin. The key to winning this category lies in the interaction between these two abilities, arguably the most important tools in their arsenal, which can both decide the outcome of this battle by themselves. Starting with the Raging Demon, thanks to the Young Comics, is now the ability to instantly send your soul to Makai if it lands, and base Ken has no real defense against this, and he showcases no resistance against soul manipulation, so it should work. Ryu takes speed, lands Raging Demon, it's overwrite. No, not exactly. Muso Tensei should be able to negate all of Hokuto's techniques, which coincidentally include a technique that sends your soul to the afterlife. Yep. On top of that, outside of being completely intangible, even the people who should logically be capable of interacting tangible things, no. Muso Tensei, it should be, but not for the reasons they're listing. Muso Tensei, the ghost is fine. The ghost is fine, actually. The ghost feat is fine, if you believe the ghost is intangible. I'd have to reread those chapters. Muso Tensei now allows Kenshiro just flat out erase his own existence, which means Ryu has no means of interacting with him if Muso Tensei activates. But can it actually activate before Rage Demon hits? Is Muso Tensei actually the only means Kenshiro has to defend himself in the situation? While it's true that Ryu takes advantage of both movement and reaction speeds, it's important to remember that Kenshiro's reaction is still far superior to Ryu's movement. Ken can react at 123C, while Ryu can move at best at 0.65C. Oh, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because this is a fight. This is combat distance. So are we really arguing that Ryu's combat speed in closing distances is that much slower than fighting? I don't know about that one. The Raging Demon being telegraphed is valid. Extreme telegraph movement, given the gap Kenshiro would have no trouble activating Muso Tensei in time to avoid it. Mind you, it also activates automatically, even when the user is unconscious, meaning Ryu just won't land the lucky hit if you crunch the numbers here. Secondly, Kenshiro's aura provides a perfect defense in this situation. Not only is the aura an effect wide enough to protect Kenshiro from all sides, it is also a tactile and a means of attack. Given the massive strength gap and the difference between movement and reaction, it is likely Kenshiro can just flex his aura and smack Ryu away with it. Referring back to the pressure point application of aura, this can also be lethal and explode Ryu instantly if he tries to approach. Yes, because Rao was able to do that. Kenshiro also demonstrates it with the speed, I believe. While self-compositing Ryu gives defenses against fear manipulation effect, it still has no counter to getting blasted by it really hard from an opponent that's 1,000 times stronger. Mind you, this is if Kenshiro's fighting Evo or Shin Ryu, which he shouldn't, as Ryu would have access to the Raging Demon, as Ryu shouldn't have access to the Raging Demon in his actual state. All in all, while Raging Demon is a powerful move that can give Ryu a win if it lands correctly, Kenshiro's defenses are simply too good to allow for the perfect opportunity to give him the win to his opponents. Nothing notable changes in this category. Kenshiro's raw martial arts. Okay. I am surprised that Kenshiro won the blog. I am very surprised. I thought for sure they were going to give it to Ryu, but I am surprised. Advantage is far faster in the soft composite round. Has access to Raging Demon in 2 of his forms, which could instantly kill Kenshiro. Overall more experience thanks to being older. Bullshit. Actually, I guess in this case it's a little more valid because Ryu is fighting a bunch of like actual good fighters, not like Doomslayer. Far weaker in both rounds, but far slower in a strictly canonical round. Kenshiro's defenses make it unlikely to ever land a hit. Far less versatile. No answer to Muso Tensei. Overall, far less skilled. Street Fighter 1 is ass. Penguin Scorpion fodder. Ryu lost to Cell. Far stronger in both rounds. Far faster with strictly canon material. Overall, more skilled in combat. Far more versatile in many techniques that can end the fight instantly. Beat Cell, highly likely to be responsible for your favorite shonen, but far slower in a soft composite round. Raging Demon can instantly end him if he lands soft composite round. Victim of whitewashing. Victim of whitewashing? What the fuck? What the fuck does that even mean? What whitewash? If anyone's a victim of whitewashing, it's Rao, because Rao is basically Rao is really tanned in the manga, but my bad. Rao is tanned in the anime, but in the manga, Rao is a white dude with blonde hair. But in the anime, he's dark skinned and has black hair. Personally, I think the anime rendition of Rao I think is better, but the reason he's white and blonde is for like to show. I'm not going to explain why. Let's just say, what you're thinking with what I just said is, from what I understand, the reason why he's white and blonde haired. Twice Souther is too. Oh, he's returned. As skilled and impressive as Ryu is, he's always going to fall short to Kenshiro where it matters. In every scenario, Kenshiro holds great advantage in the form of massive power gap, superiority, and skill in many game-ending abilities. And the cannon round can speed massively, eclipses Ryu's, and seals the deal. In the soft composite round, Ryu has pretty good edge, but that's not enough to give him the win over Kenshiro's other much more useful abilities and instant win buttons, as Muso Tensei, especially considering his movement speed is not good enough to blitz Kenshiro's reactions. All right. I mean, based on the evidence they provided, I agree. Uh, now Kyle left. That's fine. Let's see here. So some Fist and North Star matchups. Let's see here. Iroh versus Toki. Splinter versus Ryukin. Kane and Jarrus versus Shu. Jotaro Kujo versus Kenshiro. Guts versus Kenshiro. Let's see here. Oh boy, first I'd like to thank everyone who would help me with this, especially Tom, Serge, especially absurdly important Street Fighter research. As always, the matchup means a lot to me, maybe because Kenshiro means a lot to me. I've always wanted to analyze him over characters. That's how he's pinnacle Fist North Star, so you can talk about everything. I also really like Ryu. Being honest, I was not really expecting this one to be super well received, not because it wasn't well made, but I know some people are very opinionated about this pairing in particular and will absolutely not agree with the winner. Um, Speaking of Hokuto's route, you might be curious about the lack of a Kuma. That's because Kuma's route was already posted. Yeah, we made an extra blog. Was necessary? Probably not. I wanted to give a fair analysis. All right, let's look at the resources. So let me get this straight. We go with you guys only had 2 guidebooks. How'd you guys even that? I'm actually curious. How'd they even end up with the fucking how they even get these guidebooks? Because there are plenty of other guidebooks for Fist of the North Star. How okay, so I don't really feel like going over all of this. Let's just skip to the end. So to be clear, Rao should upscale above Kasumi very early on. Okay, so let's just go to their verdicts. The Hokuto brothers scale above Kasumi with the exception of maybe Jaggy. Okay, so it's just the same thing. As Akuma could likely resist effects of Hokuto Shinken, having survived against pressure point attacks. Turns out there's a lot of context around this claim. Let's break it down. First, holding against pressure points, Dude Street Fighter can again uses a technique, pressure point technique to assassinate countless targets. In Dude in comics, attacked rather explosive effect on people. And it's important to highlight the difference between the techniques portrayed in canon and the media, as you have seen the comics portray both these fights. Inclusion is not going to say Akuma can resist pressure points. Okay, so what's the outcome then? Just same thing. Strength goes to Akuma. No. Akuma Rao was red. Okay, yeah. So just as expected, Rao wins because of the same reasons Kenshiro wins. Keep in mind he should scale above Kasumi. Also, he did say F Darkstalker scaling and F Udon scaling as well. So to clarify, and this is why I'm so tripping out about the guidebooks they have. 2 of the guidebooks. Hang on. Here we go. This is the most recent Blue Sky versus North Star guidebook. They literally have the harder one to get. This came out last year. This is a brand new guidebook. Hang on. And right here, either at right here or right here, or right there, it specifically says that Rao Toki and Kenshiro are the strongest fighters Hokuto Shinken ever produced. Or something to that effect. So, why are we saying he should be comparable to Kasumi when we have statements that he's stronger? This isn't even including Ryuken's statements that would support him being stronger. Look, it's fine. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's just weird that they have the harder guidebook to get. To be honest with you, I'm kind of wondering if they even have the guides or if someone else had them and just sent them pictures of things. Okay, Rao takes it. Speed goes to Akuma. So does Akuma take this one? Nope. Same thing. Uh, yeah. So just the same matchup. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. If Kenshiro wins one round, then Rao was going to win the other one. It just makes sense. There was nothing Akuma was getting in the second round that was going to give him the win over Rao, because Rao's fist is stated to be on like equal to Kenshiro's. So that's the blog. Assuming the Street Fighter portion of canon is true, I agree with the outcome. I don't know about Udon Comics though, because that's a really weird caveat and like rabbit hole I don't know about. But assuming it's correct, the matchups make sense. I already said Rao beat Akuma in like my super bad versus video years ago, but I've always been under the impression the Fist of North Star Cast would win. I'm just genuinely surprised they actually did it this way. I guess I'm so used to like seeing the verses I rep kind of either get downplayed or like taken out, so to speak. So it is a nice breath of fresh air to see the series scaled like properly, I guess. Or I don't know. It's scaled well, is what I will say. AP and speed's always going to be up for debate depending on who you're talking to, but it's fine. Still, yeah, okay. So they have the winners being Rao and Kenshiro. Seems valid to me. Unless their scaling is overtly wrong, that should be the right outcome. So, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. We'll go ahead and call the stream there at about 3 hours. It seems Jeremy was not satisfied with how they handled the Udon Comics character. Ooh, that's a good one actually. This one's fine, but a little too sketchy for my taste. But this one, they did a clean job on that one. Although I believe these are edits. It is better than the G1 blogs I've seen. So I'm curious if they plan to make more blogs in the future. Their blogs can be better than what I've seen from G1, that's for sure. So yeah. I think with that said, we'll call it there. We'll see if we end up streaming later today. No promises on that one, but we'll see. So with that said, thank you guys for your time as always. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys on the next streamer video. Take care, everybody.